Teach Yourself Arabic Conversation. Copyright G&W Publishing. Recording copyright Teach Yourself, an imprint of Hodder Education, a division of Hodder Headline Group, 2005. Hello, and welcome to Teach Yourself Arabic Conversation. This course is aimed at complete beginners and at people who want to refresh their previous knowledge of Arabic. It will be especially useful to those who already have some knowledge of formal, written Arabic but want to improve their conversational skills. Teach Yourself Arabic Conversation will be valuable to anyone visiting Arabic-speaking countries on holiday or business. While it concentrates on the Arabic spoken in Egypt and Iraq, it also gives tips on the Arabic spoken in other parts of the Middle East. The Arabic script is written right to left, but you don't need to learn it for this course. All the Arabic conversations are written for you in the Latin script. This way, you can remind yourself how things are pronounced. But if you want to learn the Arabic script, you can try Beginner's Arabic Script in the Teach Yourself range. Each of the 10 conversations in this course has 2 dialogues broken down into 3 sections. In the first section, you'll get the chance to listen and repeat the words and phrases you'll meet in the dialogue. In the second section, you'll hear these words and phrases being used in a conversation. Finally, you'll get the chance to practice the conversation. We'll give you certain prompts. You speak, and then you can listen to check what you've said is correct. Replay and repeat sections as many times as you wish. You're in control of your learning, and you set the pace. Use the pause and replay buttons frequently to give yourself time to practice your Arabic. Try to speak out loud as much as possible. This is the best way to learn and to build your confidence to speak the language. You'll find the conversations, words and phrases in the accompanying booklet, but you don't need this in front of you when you play your recording. Listen in the car, on the bus, while exercising or doing the housework. Remember that when learning a new language, it's better to study little and often rather than to spend too long at any one time. The more you listen and repeat, the better you'll get. Conversation 1. Meeting and greeting. In your first Arabic conversation, you're going to learn how to greet someone and ask how they are. Part 1. Pleased to meet you. Nadia, an Egyptian mother of 2, is waiting at Cairo airport for her old college friend Fayrouz. Fayrouz is Iraqi, but lives in Dubai. The friends haven't seen each other since college, and Fayrouz is flying from Dubai with her husband, Tariq, to visit Nadia and her family. It's the first time their husbands have met. On your marks. Here are the 8 words and phrases you'll need for part 1 of this conversation. You'll hear the English first. Repeat the Arabic in the pauses. Hello, Fayrouz.
أهلا يا فيروز.
Hello, my dear.
يا هلا حبيبتي.
How are you? Said to a female.
شلونك؟
Fine.
الحمد لله.
Another way of asking a female, how are you?
إزيك؟
This is my husband.
هذا زوجي.
Pleased to meet you.
تشرفنا.
Hello to you, Nadia.
يا هلا بيك نادية.
Get set. Now listen to your first Arabic conversation as Nadia and Fayrouz meet at the airport.
أهلا. أهلا يا فيروز.
نادية، يا هلا حبيبتي، شلونك؟
الحمد لله. إزيك يا فيروز؟
الحمد لله، هذا زوجي طارق.
تشرفنا يا طارق.
يا هلا بيك نادية.
Over to you. Later on, we'll give you the chance to speak in Arabic after English prompts. Before you do that, you might want to practice the Arabic phrases by replaying the conversation, pausing after each phrase and saying it out loud. You can do this yourself in all future conversations, but for this first conversation, we'll show you how to do it. Take the part of Nadia. Repeat her part after her. Don't forget to speak out loud.
أهلا أهلا يا فيروز.
نادية، يا هلا حبيبتي، شلونك؟
الحمد لله. إزيك يا فيروز؟
الحمد لله، هذا زوجي طارق.
تشرفنا يا طارق.
يا هلا بيك نادية.
Well done. Now have a go at repeating what Farouz and her husband Tariq say. Speak out loud.
أهلا أهلا يا فيروز.
نادية، يا هلا حبيبتي، شلونك؟
الحمد لله. إزيك يا فيروز؟
الحمد لله، هذا زوجي طارق.
تشرفنا يا طارق.
يا هلا بيك نادية.
How did you get on? If you feel you need more practice at any time, just repeat the conversation until you can say the part fluently. You should already find that you can follow this conversation more easily. So let's take a closer look at some of the Arabic you've Making sense of it. The Arabic language is a broad spectrum. There's a modern standard Arabic taught in schools and understood throughout the Middle East. Modern standard Arabic is used for most written material and sometimes also spoken, but only in formal situations. For everyday conversation, Arabic speakers will use simpler spoken dialects. These vary from region to region. Teach Yourself Arabic Conversation will introduce you to the spoken dialects of Egypt and Iraq, while CD3 will give you some idea of how these relate to other dialects and to standard Arabic, as well as providing extra listening and speaking practice. Greetings are an important part of Arabic culture. There are many different greetings and replies, but it's best at first to learn a couple of greetings you can use in most situations. In Conversation 1, you heard two different ways of saying hello. Listen and repeat the first after Nadia.
أهلا.
In some parts of the Arab world, this greeting becomes
يا هلا.
You also heard two ways of saying how are you. Repeat them after Nadia and Ferouz.
إزيك؟
شلونك؟
A common reply is
الحمد لله.
This literally means thanks be to God. Finally, when calling people by their name, Arabs often add yeah before the name. So, how are you Ferouz would be
إزيك يا فيروز؟
You will use these phrases to open many conversations, so keep them handy and make sure you're confident with them before moving on. Getting to grips with the grammar. In English, we distinguish between males and females when we use he or she, but we use you for both sexes. Arabic does distinguish between the male and female you. This means some of the phrases you've heard will change slightly depending on whether you're talking to a man or a woman. Listen to Nadia's husband, Sermi, asking first Ferouz and then Tariq, how are you?
إزيك يا فيروز؟ إزيك يا طارق؟
Now listen to Tariq asking Nadia and Sermi how they are.
شلونك نادية؟ شلونك سامي؟
Did you notice that the questions addressed to a female end in ik or ich, but end in ak when addressed to a male? Repeat the female and male versions after Sermi and Tariq.
إزيك؟ إزيك؟
شلونك؟ شلونك؟
Listen to the conversation one more time before having a go at playing the part yourself. This time using my English prompts.
أهلا أهلا يا فيروز.
نادية، يا هلا حبيبتي، شلونك؟
الحمد لله. إزيك يا فيروز؟
الحمد لله. هذا زوجي طارق.
تشرفنا يا طارق.
يا هلا بيك نادية.
Over to you. Okay, now you'll play the parts of Nadia saying the Arabic after my prompts. You'll hear Nadia saying the correct phrase after the pause. Say, hello, hello, Farouz.
أهلا أهلا يا فيروز.
نادية، يا هلا حبيبتي، شلونك؟
Say, fine. How are you, Farouz?
الحمد لله. إزيك يا فيروز؟
الحمد لله. هذا زوجي طارق.
Say, pleased to meet you, Tarek.
تشرفنا يا طارق.
يا هلا بيك نادية.
How did you get on with that? Don't forget to always speak out loud, as this will improve your pronunciation and your confidence. You can also go back and repeat a conversation as many times as you like. Now, have a go at playing the parts of Fairuz and Tarek. I'll give you prompts in English again.
أهلا أهلا يا فيروز.
Say, Nadia, hello, my dear.
نادية، يا هلا حبيبتي،
How are you?
شلونك؟
الحمد لله. إزيك يا فيروز؟
Say, fine. This is my husband, Tarek.
الحمد لله. هذا زوجي طارق.
تشرفنا يا طارق.
Say, hello to you, Nadia.
يا هلا بيك نادية.
You now have the basic phrases for greeting people and asking how they are. Let's move on to Conversation 1, Part 2. Conversation 1, Part 2. Is this your son? Now that you've learnt some basic greetings, let's listen to some more of the conversation at the airport. On your marks. You've already learnt many of the words and phrases you'll need in this conversation, but here are a few more you'll need for Part 2. Repeat the Arabic out loud. Is this your son?
هذا ابنك؟
Yes.
أيوة.
Come, say hello.
تعال سلم.
You've grown.
كبران.
But where's your husband?
لعد وين زوجك؟
In the house.
في البيت.
With Layla, my daughter.
مع ليلى بنتي.
Let's go.
يلا بينا.
Get set. Nadia has brought her son Hisham to the airport to meet Feruz and Tarek. Listen to the conversation.
هذا ابنك هشام؟
أيوة. هشام حبيبي. تعال سلم.
يا هلا هشام، كبران.
لعد وين زوجك سامي؟
في البيت مع ليلى بنتي. يلا بينا.
Over to you. Okay, now see if you can play Nadia's part following my English prompts. Fairuz starts by asking, is this your son, Hisham?
هذا ابنك هشام؟
Reply, yes. Hisham, my dear.
أيوة. هشام حبيبي.
Come, say hello.
تعال سلم.
يا هلا هشام، كبران.
لعد وين زوجك سامي؟
Say, in the house with Layla, my daughter.
في البيت مع ليلى بنتي.
Let's go.
يلا بينا.
Now play the parts of Fairuz and Tariq in the same conversation. Follow my English prompts again and speak in the pauses. Start by asking Nadia, "Is this your son, Hisham?"
هذا ابنك هشام؟
أيوة. هشام حبيبي، تعال سلم.
Say, "Hello, Hisham, you've grown."
يا هلا هشام، كبران.
Ask, "But where's your husband, Sami?"
لعد وين زوجة سامي؟
في البيت مع ليلى بنتي، يلا بينا.
Well done. After all your hard work on those two conversations, you should be feeling a lot more confident about greeting people in Arabic. After a well-earned break, you'll be ready to move on to Conversation 2, which is all about Conversation 2, Getting Around. In this Arabic conversation, we're going to learn how to deal with taking a taxi, one of the most common forms of transport in the Middle East. You'll also get a chance to learn the numbers from 1 to 10 and to give basic directions. Part 1. Taxi. Nadia has hailed a taxi to take everyone from Cairo Airport to her house in Zamalek, an island in the centre of Cairo. Few Cairo taxis have meters, and sometimes it's appropriate to negotiate a price with the taxi in advance. However, you should find out what an acceptable fare would be so you don't over or underpay. On your marks. Here are the words and phrases you will need for this conversation. Repeat the Arabic in the pauses. Welcome.
مرحب.
Where are you going? Addressed to a group of people.
رايحين فين؟
Nile Street.
شارع النيل.
Please?
من فضلك.
Where's that?
فين ده؟
In Zamalek.
في الزمالك.
There's a large bank there.
في هناك بنك كبير.
Yes, I know.
أيوة، عارف.
Left at the bank.
شمال عند البنك.
No.
لا.
Right at the bank.
يمين عند البنك.
Please get in. Get set. Now, listen to Nadia talking to the taxi driver about how to get to her house in Zamalek.
تاكسي تاكسي.
مرحب. رايحين فين؟
شارع النيل من فضلك.
شارع النيل. فين ده؟
في الزمالك. فيه هناك بنك كبير.
أيوة، عارف. شارع النيل شمال عند البنك.
لا، يمين عند البنك.
أيوة، عارف. يمين عند البنك. اتفضلوا.
Making sense of it. Now let's take a closer look at some of the Arabic you met in that conversation. There's a few very useful phrases in this conversation that you can use in many different situations. The first is possibly the most important phrase in any language. Please.
من فضلك.
This version is used when talking to a male. As with other phrases we've met that end in ak, the ending changes to ik or ich when you're talking to a woman.
من فضلك.
من فضلك.
The Arabic for where is
فين.
Some Arabs would pronounce this slightly differently.
وين.
Listen again.
فين.
وين.
The question word can appear at the beginning or end. Where are you going?
رايحين فين؟
Where's that?
فين ده؟
A very useful phrase you met in the conversation with the taxi driver is
فيه.
this means there is or there are. There's a large bank is
فيه بنك كبير.
You can make many different sentences with this phrase, such as there's a large cinema.
فيه سينما كبيرة.
Notice that large comes after cinema in Arabic. That's something we'll look at in more detail later. There's a taxi over there would be
فيه هناك تاكسي.
You can also use the phrase as a question, omitting over there. Is there a taxi?
فيه تاكسي.
Are there any mangoes?
فيه مانجا.
Spoken Arabic doesn't generally make a difference between statements and questions. You just need to use a questioning tone. You may also hear another phrase meaning there is.
أكو تاكسي.
Finally, make a point of remembering the Arabic for right and left. Very important words when you're asking for or giving directions. Right, left.
يمين شمال.
Now you say them. Right, left.
يمين شمال.
Getting to grips with the grammar. You may have spotted the Arabic word for the in conversation too.
يمين عند البنك.
Right at the bank. The is il. Very easy to remember.
البنك.
The bank.
المانجو.
The mangoes. Repeat the bank.
البنك.
The mangoes.
المانجو.
In those two examples, il is easy to spot, but it can be more difficult to hear. Sometimes il just becomes I, with the initial sound of the following word repeated. You heard an example of this in the conversation.
النيل.
The Nile. Il sounds like in, because Nile begins with the sound n.
النيل.
The same would happen if you put il in front of taxi.
التاكسي.
This time, il has turned to it, because taxi begins with t. This happens with half of Arabic initial sounds. It's something to look out for. But don't worry about this too much at the beginning. You'll still be perfectly understood if you use il all the time. Now, have a go at saying these in Arabic. Speak in the pause and then listen to the model to see how you got on. Ready? The bank.
البنك.
The Nile.
النيل.
The mangoes.
المانجو.
The taxi.
التاكسي.
The cinema.
السينما.
The street.
الشارع.
Well done. Don't forget to replay the conversation as many times as you need to make it really familiar before having a go at playing the parts yourself. This time using my English prompts. Over to you. Okay, now you play the part of Nadia saying the Arabic after my prompts. You'll hear Nadia saying the correct phrase after the pause. Start by hailing the taxi.
تاكسي تاكسي.
مرحب. رايحين فين؟
Say Nile Street, please.
شارع النيل من فضلك.
شارع النيل. فين ده؟
Say in Zamalek.
في الزمالك.
There's a large bank there.
فيه هناك بنك كبير.
أيوة عارف. شارع النيل شمال عند البنك.
Say, no, right at the bank.
لا، يمين عند البنك.
أيوة عارف. يمين عند البنك.
How did you get on? Remember, you can replay a section as many times as you like until you feel comfortable with saying the part out loud. Now, have a go at playing the taxi driver.
تاكسي، تاكسي.
Say, welcome. Where are you going?
مرحب. رايحين فين؟
شارع النيل من فضلك.
Ask, Nile Street? Where's that?
شارع النيل فين ده؟
في الزمالك. فيه هناك بنك كبير.
Say, yes, I know.
أيوة عارف.
Nile Street is left at the bank.
شارع النيل شمال عند البنك.
لا، يمين عند البنك.
Say, yes, I know. Right at the bank.
أيوة عارف. يمين عند البنك. اتفضلوا.
Please, get in.
اتفضلوا.
Well done. You now have the basic phrases for taking a taxi and giving basic directions. In part 2, we'll practice what you've learnt and give you a chance to take part in your own conversation. Conversation 2, Part 2. What number, Nile Street? Now that we've learnt some basic expressions, we can reuse them to direct the taxi driver to Nadia's house. On your marks. You've already learnt most of the words and phrases you'll need for this conversation, but you'll need a few numbers as well. Repeat the Arabic in the pauses. Number.
نمرة.
What number?
نمرة كام؟
And here are the numbers 1 to 10. Repeat them in the pauses. 1, 2, 3.
1 2 3
4, 5, 6,
4 5 6
7, 8, 9,
7 8 9
and 10.
10.
There are also a few short phrases you'll need. Repeat these as well. Left from here.
شمال من هنا.
Is this it, madam?
هي دي يا مدام.
This is number 3.
دي نمرة 3.
I know everything.
أنا عارف كل حاجة.
Okay, now you're ready to listen to part 2 of the conversation. Get set. The taxi has reached Zamalek and Nadia is trying to direct the driver to her house. Can you hear what number her building is?
شمال من هنا.
لا، شارع النيل يمين عند البنك.
أيوة عارف. يمين. نمرة كام؟
نمرة 7 من فضلك.
هي دي يا مدام.
لا، دي نمرة 3.
أيوة نمرة 3. أنا عارف كل حاجة.
Did you catch the building number? Nadia lives at number 7.
نمرة 7.
However, the driver ended up at number 3.
نمرة 3.
Over to you. Now, you have a go at playing the part of Nadia. Play her part using my prompts. You'll find the basic directions are starting to come more easily now.
شمال من هنا.
Say, no, Nile Street is right at the bank.
لا، شارع النيل يمين عند البنك.
أيوة، عارف. يمين. نمرة كام؟
Say, number 7, please.
نمرة 7 من فضلك.
هي دي يا مدام؟
Say, no, this is number 3.
لا، دي نمرة 3.
أيوة، نمرة 3. أنا عارف كل حاجة.
How did you get on? Now try playing the taxi driver's part and put some expression into that misguided confidence. Start by asking Nadia, left from here?
شمال من هنا.
لا، شارع النيل يمين عند البنك.
Say, yes, I know. Right.
أيوة، عارف. يمين.
Ask, what number?
نمرة كام؟
نمرة 7 من فضلك.
Ask, is this it, madam?
هي دي يا مدام؟
لا، دي نمرة 3.
Say, yes, number 3.
أيوة، نمرة 3.
I know everything.
أنا عارف كل حاجة.
Well done. Remember that you can replay the whole conversation as often as you like. You should find it's all starting to fall into place now. So, let's move on to conversation 3, where you'll learn how to book a hotel and make basic requests once. Conversation 3. Basic requests. In this Arabic conversation, we're going to learn how to book a hotel room and order some drinks and snacks. You'll learn some phrases for requesting items that you'll be able to reuse again and again in different situations. Part 1. Can we reserve a room? Feruz and Tariq are sitting with Nadia and her husband Sermi in their apartment in Zamalek. After the initial introductions, the conversation moves on to where the visitors will stay. The Arab world is famously hospitable, and people will often offer you food or even accommodation. However, modern apartments can be small, and there isn't always a lot of room for guests. On your marks, here are the 15 new words and phrases you will need for this conversation. Repeat the Arabic out loud. Hotel.
فندق.
Can we book the hotel?
ممكن نحجز الفندق
By telephone?
بالتليفون.
You can.
ممكن.
I have.
أنا عندي.
Next to the bank.
جنب البنك.
Good evening.
مساء الخير.
We'd like to book a room.
نريد نحجز غرفة
For 2 people.
لشخصين.
What's your name? Formal address.
اسم حضرتك إيه؟
How many days are you here with us?
معانا هنا كام يوم؟
A term of respect, roughly translating as either sir or madam.
يا فندم.
A week.
أسبوع.
Certainly.
حاضر.
Goodbye.
مع السلامة.
Get set. Now listen to Tariq booking a room at Hotel Corniche. Can you hear how long they're staying?
ممكن نحجز الفندق بالتليفون من هنا؟
ممكن. أنا عندي النمرة. الفندق جنب البنك.
فندق الكورنيش، مساء الخير.
نريد نحجز غرفة لشخصين من فضلك.
اسم حضرتك ايه؟
طارق عبد الله.
معانا هنا كام يوم يا فندم؟
أسبوع.
حاضر، مع السلامة.
Did you hear that Tariq wanted to book the hotel room for a week?
أسبوع.
You've probably spotted some essential phrases and questions in this conversation, so let's take a closer look. Making sense of it. We've already met the Arabic for please.
من فضلك. من فضلك.
Now we can add two phrases for requesting something. The first is easy to remember and pronounce.
ممكن.
This phrase literally means possible and is used to ask, can we? Can I? Can you? And so on. You can follow it directly with an item to mean, can I have? Or can we have? So, can I have a cola is,
ممكن كولا.
can I have a sandwich?
ممكن سندويشة.
Can I have a mango juice?
ممكن عصير مانجو.
Or you can follow with a verb, as you've heard in the conversation. Can we book the hotel?
ممكن نحجز الفندق.
And you can reply by using the same word, meaning, yes, you can.
ممكن.
The other phrase you've met for requests is,
نريد.
this means, we'd like. Say it out loud, after the pause.
نريد.
Again, you can follow this directly with the item requested, or with a verb. So, we'd like a mango juice would be,
نريد عصير مانجو.
and we'd like to book a room would be,
نريد نحجز غرفة.
These two words for requesting can take you a long way. You also have another greeting to add to those you've learnt earlier. Good evening.
مساء الخير.
This greeting can also be used in the late afternoon. Try saying it.
مساء الخير.
This literally means evening of the prosperity. We can substitute the word for evening with the word for morning, which is,
صباح.
this produces good morning.
صباح الخير.
Repeat, good morning.
صباح الخير.
You can answer good morning and good evening with the same phrase, or you can use a common reply meaning morning of the light or evening of the light.
صباح النور. مساء النور.
Getting to grips with the grammar. Do you remember how to say, I have the number, from the conversation?
أنا عندي النمرة.
The Arabic word for I is,
أنا.
it is sometimes also pronounced.
آني.
When you say, I have the number in Arabic, you're actually saying, I at me the number. The me is the E on the end.
أنا عندي.
You can add E to the end of other words to mean my. For example, daughter or girl is,
بنت.
my daughter is.
بنتي.
We've already seen that Arabic distinguishes between male and female you, and met the two endings meaning your, ak for males, and ik or ich for females.
بنتك. بنتك.
بنتج.
Sometimes Egyptians will use a more polite version of your,
حضرتك. حضرتك.
and we heard the hotel receptionist say this in the conversation when he asked, "What's your name?"
اسم حضرتك إيه؟
A less formal way to ask this question to a man would be,
اسمك إيه؟
or to a female, you would say,
اسمك إيه؟
to which you would reply, "My name is..."
أنا اسمي.
Well done. You're starting to see how just a few phrases can add up to quite a lot. Over to you. Okay, now you play the part of Tarek, saying the Arabic after my English prompts. Some of the phrases may be a little longer than you've attempted so far. You can always go back a second time and see how much easier it is. You'll hear Tarek saying the correct phrase after the pause. Start by asking, "Can we book the hotel by telephone from here?"
ممكن نحجز الفندق بالتليفون من هنا؟
ممكن. أنا عندي النمرة. الفندق جنب البنك.
فندق الكورنيش، مساء الخير.
Say, we'd like to book a room for 2 people, please.
نريد نحجز غرفة لشخصين من فضلك.
اسم حضرتك إيه؟
Tell him Tarek Abdullah.
طارق عبد الله.
معانا هنا كام يوم يا فندم؟
Say a week.
أسبوع.
حاضر. مع السلامة.
How did you get on? You may need to have several turns before you can say the part fluently. Now, have a go at playing Nadia and the hotel receptionist.
ممكن نحجز الفندق بالتليفون من هنا؟
Say, you can. I have the number.
ممكن. أنا عندي النمرة.
The hotel is next to the bank.
الفندق جنب البنك.
Now say, Hotel Corniche, good evening.
فندق الكورنيش، مساء الخير.
نريد نحجز غرفة لشخصين من فضلك.
Ask politely, what's your name?
اسم حضرتك إيه؟
طارق عبد الله.
Ask, how many days are you with us here, sir?
معانا هنا كام يوم يا فندم؟
أسبوع.
Say, certainly. Goodbye.
حاضر. مع السلامة.
Well done, you've come a long way already with your speaking and understanding. In part 2, we'll practice what you've learnt and give you a chance to take part in your own. Conversation 3, Part 2. Ordering drinks and snacks. You now know some phrases for requesting something. In Part 2, you'll hear Tarek and Fairuz using these phrases to ask room service for some drinks and snacks. On your marks. You've already met a few words for drinks and snacks, some of which sound similar to English. Arabic has imported words such as sandwich, burger, cola, ketchup, pizza, and even bottle. Although which words are used does vary from region to region. A few other words such as falafel and hummus have gone the other way from Arabic into English. Here are the words you will need for this conversation. Repeat them out loud. Bottle of water.
بطل مي.
Some ice.
شوية ثلج.
Sandwich.
سندويشة.
Cheese sandwich.
سندويشة جبن.
Juice.
عصير.
Mango juice.
عصير مانجو.
Here it is.
هي أنا.
Anything else?
حاجة تانية؟
Finally, you'll hear an alternative way of saying please.
رجاءً.
Okay, now you're ready to listen to part 2 of the conversation. Get set. Tarek and Fairuz are sitting in their hotel room discussing what they'd like to order from room service. What does each one want?
أريد بطل مي ويا شوية ثلج.
وأني أريد سندويشة جبن ويا عصير مانجو.
وين الروم سيرفيس؟ هي أنا. 626.
room service.
نريد بطل مي ويا شوية ثلج وواحد عصير مانجو.
حاضر. حاجة تانية؟
ممكن سندويشة جبن رجاءً؟
ممكن يا مدام. غرفة نمرة كام؟
غرفة 10.
So, Fairuz wants a bottle of water and some ice, and Tariq wants a cheese sandwich and mango juice. Did you notice that both Fairuz and Tariq say, I'd like?
أريد.
This is similar to we'd like, but without the n sound on the beginning. Listen.
أريد. نريد.
Over to you. Before you have a go at playing the part of Fairuz, practice saying these phrases in Arabic. I'd like a sandwich.
أريد سندويشة.
I'd like a cheese sandwich.
أريد سندويشة جبن.
We'd like a bottle of water.
نريد بطل مي.
We'd like some ice.
نريد شوية ثلج.
Can I have one mango juice?
ممكن واحد عصير مانجو؟
Good. Now I think you're ready to play the part of Fairuz using my prompts. Speak out loud after the English. Start by saying, I'd like a bottle of water and some ice.
أريد بطل مي ويا شوية ثلج.
وأني أريد سندويشة جبن ويا عصير مانجو.
Say, where's room service? Here it is, 626.
وين الروم سيرفيس؟ هيانا 626.
room service.
Say, we'd like a bottle of water.
نريد بطل مي.
And some ice and one mango juice.
ويا شوية ثلج وواحد عصير مانجو.
حاضر. حاجة تانية؟
Say, can I have a cheese sandwich, please?
ممكن سندويشة جبن رجاءً؟
ممكن يا مدام. غرفة نمرة كام؟
Say, room 10.
غرفة 10.
Now, have a go at playing the part of Tariq and room service.
أريد بطل مي ويا شوية ثلج.
Say, and I want a cheese sandwich.
وأني أريد سندويشة جبن.
And a mango juice.
ويا عصير مانجو.
وين الروم سيرفيس؟ هيانا 626.
Say, room service. You'll usually hear this in English in hotels.
room service.
نريد بطل مي ويا شوية ثلج وواحد عصير مانجو.
Say, certainly. Anything else?
حاضر. حاجة تانية؟
ممكن سندويشة جبن رجاءً؟
Say, you can, madam. What room number?
ممكن يا مدام. غرفة نمرة كام؟
غرفة 10.
Well done. You've reached the end of Conversation 3. Take a well-earned break before moving on to Conversation 4, where you'll be able to use some of the new phrases you've learnt so far to shop for food and... Conversation 4. Shopping. In this Arabic conversation, we're going shopping in the local store and in the souk, an Arabic word for market. You'll also get a chance to practice the numbers you already know and add some higher ones. Part 1. Shopping for food. You're going to learn how to ask if something is available and how much it is. On your marks. Here are the words and phrases you will need for this conversation. Repeat the Arabic in the pauses. Can I help you?
أي خدمة؟
Do you have bread for sandwiches?
عندكم خبز للساندويتشة؟
There isn't any.
مفيش.
We have.
عندنا
Egyptian pita bread.
عيش بلدي.
Okay.
طيب.
Anything else?
حاجة تاني؟
Half a kilo of white cheese.
نص كيلو جبن أبيض.
Where are you from, madam?
حضرتك منين يا مدام؟
I'm Iraqi.
أنا عراقية.
I live in Dubai.
عايشة بدبي.
Welcome to Egypt.
أهلا وسهلا في مصر.
How much is the bill?
كم الحساب؟
£4 and 50 piastres.
4 جنيه و50 قرش.
Get set. Fairuz has gone to the local shop to buy some bread and cheese for a planned picnic.
صباح الخير يا مدام. أي خدمة؟
صباح النور. عندكم خبز للساندويتشة؟
لا مفيش. بس عندنا عيش بلدي.
طيب. أريد 5 رجاءً.
1 2 3 4 5. حاجة تاني؟
ونص كيلو جبن أبيض من فضلك.
حضرتك منين يا مدام؟
أنا عراقية. عايشة بدبي.
أهلا وسهلا في مصر.
أهلا بيك. كم الحساب من فضلك؟
4 جنيه و50 قرش.
Making sense of it. Now let's take a closer look at some of the Arabic used in the conversation. Notice that the shopkeeper calls Fairuz Madame, with that little word yeah used when addressing people directly.
صباح الخير يا مدام.
She then goes on to ask, "Can I help you?" or literally, "Any service?"
أي خدمة؟
This is a phrase you'll hear a lot in shops and other service industries, along with anything else or another thing.
حاجة تاني؟
This is an Egyptian phrase which in many other Arab countries will change to
شي ثاني؟
It's easy to ask for a kilo of something, just say kilo and then add whatever you want. So a kilo of cheese is,
كيلو جبن.
and half a kilo is,
نص كيلو.
so half a kilo of cheese is.
نص كيلو جبن.
You also heard some useful phrases for describing your nationality or where you live. Fairuz says, "I'm Iraqi."
أنا عراقية.
There is no equivalent of am in Arabic. Fairuz is literally saying, "I, Iraqi." Notice that she uses the feminine a ending.
أنا عراقية.
If Tarek were talking, he wouldn't use this ending. He would say,
أني عراقي.
most nationalities end in e for males or iya for females. So Egypt is,
مصر.
and Egyptian is.
مصري. أنا مصري.
مصرية. أنا مصرية.
If you want to say, "I'm English," you would say,
أنا إنجليزي.
أنا إنجليزية.
or "I'm American,"
أنا أمريكي.
أنا أمريكية.
and you can add where you live. Fairuz lives in Dubai.
عايشة بدبي.
Notice that she uses the feminine a ending again. Tarek would say,
عايش بدبي.
repeat this phrase, but change Dubai for the town where you live.
عايشة بدبي.
عايش بدبي.
Finally, don't forget that important question. How much is the bill?
كم الحساب؟
You already know the numbers 1 to 10, but you'll need some higher numbers for dealing with money. We'll start with 20 and count in tens to 100. Notice that all these numbers end in "een," the Arabic equivalent of the English T. Just listen for now. We'll come back for more practice later.
20 30 40 50 60 70 80 90 100.
Combining the tens and hundreds is similar to English. So, 150 is
150
and 180 is
180.
getting to grips with the grammar. Earlier, we learned how to say I have.
أنا عندي.
For example, I have a daughter.
أنا عندي بنت.
Here's another example. Do you have the number? First when talking to a male and then to a female.
أنت عندك النمرة؟ أنتي عندك النمرة؟
You can also use a shortened form of these phrases without the initial I or you. So, I have a house would become
عندي بيت.
and do you have the number would become
عندك النمرة؟ عندك النمرة؟
When Fairuz says, "Do you have bread for sandwiches?" in the shop, she is using the same phrase but with the plural form of you, as this is normally used in shops.
عندكم
The shopkeeper replies, "We have."
عندنا.
Finally, don't forget that spoken Arabic doesn't have a special question form, so the same phrase means "You have bread" or "Do you have bread?" depending on the intonation.
عندكم خبز. عندكم.
Over to you. Okay, now you play the part of Fairuz saying the Arabic after my prompts. You'll hear Fairuz saying the correct phrase after the pause.
صباح الخير يا مدام. أي خدمة؟
Reply to the shopkeeper's greeting and ask, "Do you have any bread for sandwiches?"
صباح النور. عندكم خبز للساندويتشة؟
لا مفيش، بس عندنا عيش بلدي.
Say, "Okay, I'd like 5, please."
طيب، أريد 5 رجاءً.
1 2 3 4 5. حاجة تاني؟
And half a kilo of white cheese, please.
ونص كيلو جبن أبيض من فضلك.
حضرتك منين يا مدام؟
Tell the shopkeeper, "I'm Iraqi. I live in Dubai."
أنا عراقية، عايشة بدبي.
أهلا وسهلا في مصر.
Say, "Welcome to you."
أهلا بيك.
Now ask, "How much is the bill, please?"
كم الحساب من فضلك؟
4 جنيه و50 قرش.
How did you get on with that? Don't always expect to keep up the first time around. There's no limit on how many times you can play this conversation, and you'll find you improve every time. Well done! You now have the basic phrases for requesting items in shops and for asking how much something is. In part 2, we're going to move on to the souk. Conversation 4, part 2. In the souk. Now that you've learnt some basic expressions to use while shopping, you're ready to go to the souk. We may even be able to manage a little haggling. On your marks. You've already met many of the words and phrases you'll need for this conversation, but here are a few more. Repeat the Arabic in the pauses. A ring.
خاتم.
For my daughter.
البنتي.
How old is she?
عندها كم سنة؟
25 years old.
25 سنة.
Beautiful.
جميل.
Gold.
ذهب.
Silver.
فضة.
How much is this one?
كم هذا؟
Here you are.
اتفضل.
Very expensive.
غالي كثير.
Let's look at the weight.
نشوف الوزن.
That's my final offer.
آخر كلام.
Congratulations to your daughter.
مبروك على بنتك.
Get set. Tarek has gone to the jewellery section of the Cairo souk to buy his daughter a ring for her birthday. How much does he pay in the end?
مساء الخير يا فندم.
مساء النور. أريد خاتم البنتي.
عندها كم سنة؟
25 سنة.
اتفضل. خاتم جميل. ذهب.
لا، أريد فضة. هذا فضة؟ بكم هذا؟
أيوة فضة. ب190 جنيه.
أوف، هذا غالي كثير.
لا نشوف الوزن. طيب 180.
175 جنيه. آخر كلام.
ماشي. مبروك على بنتك.
Did you catch how much Tarek paid for the ring? £175.
175 جنيه.
Tarek and the jeweller expect to haggle, but the exchange is friendly and light-hearted and ends with a fair outcome. Making sense of it. Now let's have a closer look at the higher numbers you heard in the souk. 10 is...
10.
The other 10s are quite easy to remember. Just replace the a on the end of the number with in. For example, 3 is...
3.
Replace the a with in to get 30.
30.
Do the same with the other 10s. For example, 4 is...
4.
and 40 is...
40.
Try the others. 5 is...
5.
so 50 is...
50.
6 is...
6.
so 60 is...
60.
7 is...
7.
so 70 is...
70.
8 is...
8.
so 80 is...
80.
9 is...
9.
so 90 is...
90.
And do you remember 100?
100.
To say 75, Arabic uses the order 5 and 70.
75.
In the same way, 46 would be 6 and 40.
46.
100 can be added before the number. So 175 is...
175.
and 190 is...
190.
Getting to grips with the grammar. You heard some more of the endings that Arabic adds to words to mean my, your, her, and so on. You know the word for daughter or girl.
بنت.
And you know if you add E to the end of a word, it means my daughter.
بنتي.
A ring for my daughter.
خاتم لبنتي.
Remember the expression we used for she has, or literally, at her.
عندها.
We heard this in the question, she has how many years? Which is how you say, how old is she in Arabic?
عندها كم سنة؟
And the reply was 25 years.
25 سنة.
Finally, notice that in an expression such as a beautiful gold ring, Arabic puts the word for ring first, followed by the words for beautiful and gold.
خاتم جميل ذهب.
Remember that there is no separate word for a. Over to you. OK, now see if you can play Tariq's part in the souk, following my English prompts. The jeweller starts by greeting you.
مساء الخير يا فندم.
Say, good evening. I'd like a ring for my daughter.
مساء النور، أريد خاتم لبنتي.
عندها كم سنة؟
Say, 25 years old.
25 سنة.
اتفضل. خاتم جميل ذهب.
No, I want silver. Is that silver?
لا، أريد فضة. هذا فضة؟
And ask, how much is this one?
كم هذا؟
أيوة فضة. ب190 جنيه.
Say, ooh, that's very expensive.
أوف، هذا غالي كثير.
لا نشوف الوزن. طيب 180.
Say, 175 pounds.
175 جنيه.
That's my final offer.
آخر كلام.
ماشي. مبروك على بنتك.
Well done! You've completed this Arabic conversation, and you'll be a lot more confident about buying items in a shop or in the market. You'll also find more practice with numbers on CD3 to help you recognize and use them more easily. The numbers and prices will also be very useful in the next conversation, where you'll be going sightseeing and Conversation 5. Sightseeing. At some point during your visit, you're sure to want to see the sights. In this conversation, you're going to learn how to say where you want to go and how to buy entrance tickets when you arrive. Part 1. What is there to see? Tarek and Fairuz are discussing with Nadia and Sermi where to go tomorrow. On your marks. Here are the words and phrases you will need for this conversation. Repeat the Arabic in the pauses. Tomorrow.
بكرة.
We want to see
نريد نشوف.
the center of town.
وسط البلد.
I want to go to.
أريد أروح.
You can visit
ممكن تزور.
the University of Al-Azhar,
جامعة الأزهر.
the Mosque of Al-Hussein.
مسجد الحسين.
Lovely. The same word as beautiful.
جميل.
Thursday.
يوم الخميس.
We're going to
نروح.
the Egyptian Museum.
المتحف المصري.
We must see
لازم نشوف.
Get set. Now listen to Tariq and Fairuz discussing their sightseeing plans for tomorrow.
رايحين فين بكرة يا فيروز؟
نريد نشوف وسط البلد.
أريد أروح خان الخليلي والسوق هناك.
ممكن تزور جامعة الأزهر ومسجد الحسين.
جميل. ويوم الخميس نروح المتحف المصري.
لازم نشوف توت عنخ آمون.
Making sense of it. You heard the Arabic for Thursday in the conversation.
يوم الخميس.
The names given to the days of the week from Sunday to Thursday are related to the numbers 1 to 5 in Arabic. Friday and Saturday have their own special names. Listen first to the days of the week from Sunday to Thursday.
يوم الأحد. يوم الاثنين. يوم الثلاثاء. يوم الأربعاء. يوم الخميس.
Friday is
يوم الجمعة.
and Saturday is.
يوم السبت.
Finally, you don't need to add on, as in on Tuesday, when you use the days of the week in a sentence as you would in English. Getting to grips with the grammar. You're probably starting to see patterns that will help you to adapt the phrases to suit your particular circumstances. Let's have a look at some of those patterns you heard in Conversation 5. You already know how to say can or may.
ممكن.
You can follow this with a verb, as in we can see,
ممكن نشوف.
or we can go.
ممكن نروح.
For we, the verb starts with n. Change this to t, to refer to you, or to refer to I. So, you can visit would be
ممكن تزور.
I can go.
ممكن أروح.
You can change the meaning from can to must by using the following.
لازم. لازم نشوف.
We must see. So, can you work out how to say I must see
لازم أشوف.
and you must go?
لازم تروح.
The verbs can also be used by themselves with the meaning of we go or we're going, I see, or I'm seeing, and so on. Remember Fairuz saying, and on Thursday we're going to the Egyptian Museum.
ويوم الخميس نروح المتحف المصري.
Or you can use the verbs after I want. I want to go to Cairo.
أريد أروح للقاهرة.
Or we want to see the centre of town.
نريد نشوف وسط البلد.
Now it's nearly time to have a go at playing the parts yourself, using English prompts. You may want to go back and listen to the complete conversation again first. Over to you. You play the part of Fairuz, saying the Arabic after my prompts.
رايحين فين بكرة يا فيروز؟
Say, we want to see the centre of town.
نريد نشوف وسط البلد.
أريد أروح خان الخليلي والسوق هناك.
ممكن تزور جامعة الأزهر ومسجد الحسين.
Say, lovely, and on Thursday we're going to the Egyptian Museum.
جميل. ويوم الخميس نروح المتحف المصري.
لازم نشوف توت عنخ آمون.
Well done. You should be able to say quite a lot about your plans just by using a few simple combinations. Part 2 will give you a chance to follow up your plans by buying some tickets. Conversation 5, Part 2, Buying Tickets. Tarek and Fairuz have arrived at the Egyptian Museum and want to buy 2 entrance tickets. On your marks, here are 6 additional phrases you'll need for Part 2. You already know some of the words that make up the phrases, and that will help you. Repeat the new phrases in the pauses. Museum tickets.
تذاكر المتحف.
Adults or children?
كبار ولا أطفال؟
The ticket is £5.
التذكرة ب5 جنيه.
£2 extra.
2 جنيه زيادة.
The total is £14.
يبقى كله 14 جنيه.
£6 change.
الباقي 6 جنيه.
Okay, now you're ready to listen to Part 2 of the Get set. Tarek and Fairuz are at the ticket office of the Egyptian Museum in downtown Cairo. See if you can hear how much Tarek paid.
أي خدمة يا فندم؟
كم تذاكر المتحف من فضلك؟
كبار ولا أطفال؟
2 كبار.
التذكرة ب5 جنيه.
ونريد نشوف توت عنخ آمون.
2 جنيه زيادة. يبقى كله 14 جنيه من فضلك.
تفضل 20 جنيه.
اتفضل. الباقي 6 جنيه. مع السلامة.
Did you work out how much Tarek paid? He paid £14. £5 each for the adult entrance tickets and £2 extra each to see Tutankhamun. He paid with a £20 note and got £6 change. Over to you. If you're still struggling with the numbers, you might want to review them again in Conversation 2 before having a go at taking part in this conversation. But don't forget that practice makes perfect, and using the numbers in context is what will fix them in your memory in the end. Now, play Tarek's part using my prompts.
أي خدمة يا فندم؟
Ask, how much are the tickets for the museum, please?
كم تذاكر المتحف من فضلك؟
كبار ولا أطفال؟
Say 2 adults.
2 كبار.
التذكرة ب5 جنيه.
Say, and we want to see Tutankhamun.
ونريد نشوف توت عنخ آمون.
2 جنيه زيادة. يبقى كله 14 جنيه من فضلك.
Say, here you are, £20.
تفضل 20 جنيه.
اتفضل. الباقي 6 جنيه. مع السلامة.
Try replaying the whole conversation a couple of times again now to check your understanding. Congratulations! You're halfway through the conversations now, and you've come a long way since you started. You can greet people, talk about yourself, get around town, order basic food and drink, book a hotel room, go shopping, buy tickets, and talk about your sightseeing plans. You've also learnt the Arabic numbers and days of the week. Let's move on now to Conversation 6, which looks at eating out in restaurants in more detail. Conversation 6. At the restaurant. In this conversation, you're going to learn more about Middle Eastern food and how to order in a restaurant. Part 1. Ordering a meal. Tarek and Fairuz have gone out into Cairo to do some sightseeing and have stopped in a restaurant for lunch. On your marks. Here are the words and phrases you will need for this conversation. Repeat the Arabic out loud. Excuse me,
لو سمحت،
what's good today?
شنو طيب اليوم؟
Okra with lamb.
بامية باللحمة الضاني.
Grilled chicken.
فراخ مشوية.
I don't like.
ما أحب.
Fish.
سمك.
Would you like, said to a female,
تحبي
grilled or fried?
مشوي ولا مقلي؟
With
مع
rice?
رز.
Salad?
سلطة.
Give me
أعطيني.
potatoes.
بطاطا.
Shall I bring you formal expression?
أجيب لحضرتك
A plate of tahini.
صحن طحينة.
Get set. Tarek and Farouz are sitting down in the restaurant. They call over the waiter.
لو سمحت شنو طيب اليوم؟
فيه بامية باللحمة الضاني وفراخ مشوية.
ما أحب الضاني. في سمك؟
فيه سمك يا مدام. تحبي مشوي ولا مقلي؟
مقلي من فضلك، مع رز وسلطة.
وأعطيني الفراخ المشوية مع البطاطا.
أجيب لحضرتك صحن طحينة؟
نعم، واثنين عصير مانجو من فضلك.
Making sense of it. There were two different words meaning with in the conversation. First there was,
به
this appeared in the phrase okra with lamb.
بامية باللحمة الضاني.
The second word meaning with was,
مع
you met this in the sentence, the grilled chicken with potatoes.
الفراخ المشوية مع بطاطا.
The difference is that the first implies a closer relationship and means coming with or cooked with, whereas the second implies a looser relationship, meaning simply accompanied by or together with. Both these words can be used in contexts other than describing dishes. For example, you could describe a car with CD as coming with CD.
سيارة بCD.
But I'm going with my husband would be together with my husband.
أروح مع زوجي.
You've probably noticed how the word order in Arabic is often inverted when compared to English in two-word phrases, such as grilled chicken,
فراخ مشوية.
fried fish,
سمك مقلي.
Nile Street,
شارع النيل.
or mango juice.
عصير مانجا.
If you want to be specific and say the grilled chicken, you need to add il to both words. It's as if you're saying the chicken, the grilled,
الفراخ المشوية.
or the fried fish.
السمك المقلي.
But if both words are nouns and the meaning is of the, as in the street of the Nile or the juice of the mangoes, you only need il in front of the second word.
شارع النيل. عصير المانجا.
Getting to grips with the grammar. In Conversation 5, you met the verbs see and go and learnt that we, as in we go or we're going, starts with n, you with t, and I with a. In this conversation, there's another verb meaning like. I like is,
أحب.
so we like is,
نحب.
and you like is,
تحب.
You like can also be used when offering something with the meaning of would you like mango juice?
تحب عصير مانجا؟
You'll remember that Arabic has a male and a female you.
أنت؟ أنتي.
When a verb refers to the female you, e or een is added to the male version. Listen to both the male and female versions of the following. You like,
تحب، تحبي.
you see,
تشوف، تشوفي.
you go.
تروح تروحين.
You heard the female version of you like in Conversation 6 when the waiter asked Ferouz, would you like fried or grilled?
تحبي مقلي ولا مشوي؟
You also heard Ferouz saying, I don't like lamb.
ما أحب الضاني.
In conversational Arabic, verbs are generally made negative by adding mehr, I don't like.
ما أحب.
We don't see.
ما نشوف.
I don't go.
ما أروح.
You don't like.
ما تحب.
In some dialects, including Egyptian, a sh sound will also often appear after the negative verb. Listen again. I don't like.
ما حبش.
We don't see.
ما نشوفش.
I don't go.
ما أروحش.
You don't like.
ما تحبش.
Now that you've had the main language points explained, replay the complete conversation again and listen out for them. Then you'll be ready to have a go at playing the parts yourself using my English. Over to you. You play the part of Farouz saying the Arabic after my prompts. The phrases are a little longer than in earlier conversations, and we've split up some of the longer ones to help you remember them. You can also go back over these repetitions several times until you're fluent. Start by saying, excuse me, what's good today?
لو سمحت شنو طيب اليوم؟
في بامية باللحمة الضاني وفراخ مشوية.
Say, I don't like lamb.
ما أحب الضاني.
Is the fish?
فيه سمك؟
في سمك يا مدام. تحبي مشوي ولا مقلي؟
Say, fried, please, with rice and salad.
مقلي من فضلك. مع رز وسلطة.
And now say, and give me the grilled chicken with potatoes.
واعطيني الفراخ المشوية مع بطاطا.
أجيب لحضرتك صحن طحينة؟
Say, yes, and 2 mango juices, please.
نعم، و2 عصير مانجو من فضلك.
Well done. Now that you have some phrases to help you order food, you can continue to part 2 to follow up on what you've learnt and acquire some more food. Conversation 6, Part 2. I don't like fish. Tariq and Farouz have now ordered their meal and the waiter is bringing the food. A lot of attention is paid generally to the presentation and the taste of food in the Middle East, and it's common for everyone to have a sample of all the different dishes. Here are 6 additional words and phrases you'll need for part 2 of the conversation. Repeat them out loud. Delicious.
لذيذ.
Would you like to taste a piece? Said to a male.
تذوق قطعة.
A lot, much, or very.
كثير.
Would you like to taste the tahini? Said to a female.
تذوق الطحينة.
A little, a bit.
شوية.
Cold,
بارد.
hot.
سخن.
Remember that adjectives have to end in a if the word they described is feminine. And this ending is also added when describing plurals. So, the potatoes are hot is,
البطاطا سخنة.
and the potatoes are cold is,
البطاطا باردة.
and finally, here are a few more useful phrases for the end of the meal. Dessert.
حاجة حلوة.
I'm full up.
أني شبعت.
Just the bill.
الحساب بس.
One moment.
لحظة.
Get set. The food has arrived, and Farus wants Tarek to try her fish.
لذيذ السمك يا طارق. تذوق قطعة؟
لا، أنا ما أحب السمك كثير. تذوقي الطحينة؟
نعم نعم. أعطيني شوية طحينة مع خبز.
البطاطا باردة شوية. أنا أحب البطاطا سخنة كثير.
أجيب لحضرتك حاجة حلوة؟
أني شبعت كثير.
وأني الحساب بس من فضلك.
حاضر. لحظة.
Over to you. See if you can go straight into playing Tarek's part, making up the Arabic from my English prompts.
لذيذ السمك يا طارق. تذوق قطعة؟
Tell Farus, no, I don't like fish much.
لا، أنا ما أحب السمك كثير.
Now ask, would you like to taste the tahini?
تذوقي الطحينة؟
نعم نعم. أعطيني شوية طحينة مع خبز.
Say, the potatoes are a bit cold.
البطاطا باردة شوية.
I like potatoes very hot.
أنا أحب البطاطا سخنة كثير.
أجيب لحضرتك حاجة حلوة؟
أني شبعت كثير.
Say, me too. Just the bill, please.
وأني الحساب بس من فضلك.
حاضر. لحظة.
Did you manage at least some of that? Replay the complete conversation and try again if you need more practice. How did you do? You've met some really useful phrases, and it's definitely worth learning how to say you've had enough politely, as Arabs are famous for their hospitality and won't easily take, "No, I've had enough," for an answer. Try replaying Part 2, Conversation 6 again, so that you're really familiar with the key words and phrases. Then you'll be ready to move on to a different topic in Conversation 7, where you'll learn how to describe people and make polite conversation at social occasions. Conversation 7. Describing people. In this conversation, you're going to learn about how to describe people, as well as some essential vocabulary for clothes and colours. You'll also learn some more useful phrases for expressing admiration and congratulating people. Part 1. Family photos. You may well find yourself looking at family photos or showing your own pictures. It's a good way of breaking the ice and learning more about someone's family and friends. In Part 1 of Conversation 7, you'll hear Farus asking Nadia about her family photos. On your marks. Here are the new words and phrases you will need for this conversation. There are quite a few. Many of them items of clothing and colours. So you may want to play the list more than once before you listen to Conversation 7. But don't worry, you'll have plenty of chances to practice this useful vocabulary. Now, listen and repeat the Arabic out loud. Who's that?
منو هذا؟
The one wearing... talking about a man.
اللي لابس.
Or talking about a woman,
اللي لابسة.
a green shirt.
قميص أخضر.
My older brother.
أخويا الكبير.
A professor of philosophy.
أستاذ فلسفة.
That's wonderful!
ما شاء الله.
Are those his daughters?
هذول بناته؟
Boy.
ولد.
Also,
كمان.
the one standing next to the tree.
اللي واقف جنب الشجرة.
The one with black hair, or whose hair is black.
اللي شعره أسود.
Which one?
أي واحد.
The one who's wearing a suit.
اللي لابس بدلة.
A friend.
صاحب.
A red dress.
فستان أحمر.
That's my sister, Fatima.
دي أختي فاطمة.
The bride, or bride-to-be.
العروسة.
The one whose wedding is tomorrow.
اللي فرحها بكرة.
Get set. Nadia's sister, Fatima, is getting married, and her wedding is tomorrow. Nadia has asked Farouz and Tarek to come along as well, and has got out her family photograph album to show Farouz some of the pictures of her family.
منو هذا نادية؟ اللي لابس قميص أخضر.
ده أخويا الكبير نديم. هو أستاذ فلسفة.
ما شاء الله. وهذول بناته؟
أيوة، وعنده ولد كمان. اللي واقف جنب الشجرة.
وهذا اللي شعره أسود؟
أي واحد.
اللي لابس بدلة.
ده أنور، صاحب سامي من الجامعة.
والبنت اللي لابسة فستان أحمر؟
دي أختي فاطمة، العروسة اللي فرحها بكرة.
Making sense of it. Conversation 7 has many examples of phrases which include the following word.
اللي.
This means who, as in the girl who's wearing a red dress.
البنت اللي لابسة فستان أحمر.
Or it can mean which, if it is referring to an object rather than to a person. For example, the tree which is next to the bank.
الشجرة اللي جنب البنك.
You can also use this word by itself to mean the one who or the one which. For example, the one who's wearing a suit.
اللي لابس بدلة.
The one who's standing next to the tree.
اللي واقف جنب الشجرة.
You heard 3 colours in the dialogue: green, black and red.
أخضر أسود أحمر.
The 6 basic colours all start with a in Arabic and follow a similar pattern, sounding a bit like the English word asthma. Here's green, black and red again.
أخضر أسود أحمر.
And now blue,
أزرق
yellow
أصفر
and lastly white.
أبيض.
Let's say those again. This time you repeat them in 2 groups. First, green, black, red.
أخضر أسود أحمر.
And now blue, yellow, white.
أزرق أصفر أبيض.
Only the basic colours follow this pattern. Other colours usually end in E and are often based on a natural feature. For example, pink.
وردي.
This is based on the colour of roses.
ورد.
Brown.
بني
This is based on the colour of coffee beans.
بن
Finally, don't forget the adjective, in this case the colour, comes after the thing it describes. So a red dress would be,
فستان أحمر
and black hair is,
شعر أسود.
and a green shirt is.
قميص أخضر.
Getting to grips with the grammar. In conversations 1 to 7, you've met several examples of the Arabic equivalents of this and that. Here's a summary of how it works. In spoken Arabic, you can generally use the same word for this or that. However, the word will change depending on whether you're talking about something masculine, feminine, or plural. Iraqi and Gulf Arabic uses a version which is fairly close to Standard Arabic. This for the masculine is,
هذا
for the feminine is,
هذه
and the plural is.
هذولا
But Egyptians tend to shorten these words to.
ده دي دول.
Listen again to the fuller and shortened versions.
هذا هذه هذولا
ده دي دول.
Now, repeat a few of the phrases containing this or that you've heard so far. This is my husband.
هذا زوجي.
This is number 3.
دي نمرة 3.
How much is that?
بكم هذا؟
Who's that?
منو هذا؟
That's Anwar.
ده أنور.
Are those his daughters?
هذولا بناته؟
You can see that as long as you can point and say this or the one who, you'll be able to construct quite a decent. Over to you. You play the part of Farouz, saying the Arabic after my prompts. Remember, you can replay the conversations as many times as you need if you find the sentences too long to remember the first time around. Start by asking, who's that, Nadia?
منو هذا نادية؟
The one who's wearing a green shirt.
اللي لابس قميص أخضر.
ده أخويا الكبير نديم. هو أستاذ فلسفة.
Express your admiration by saying, that's wonderful.
ما شاء الله.
And add, and are those his daughters?
وهذولا بناته؟
أيوة، وعنده ولد كمان. اللي واقف جنب الشجرة.
Now say, ah, and this one, the one with black hair.
وهذا اللي شعره أسود؟
أي واحد.
The one wearing a suit.
اللي لابس بدلة.
ده أنور صاحب سامي من الجامعة.
And the girl who's wearing a red dress.
والبنت اللي لابسة فستان أحمر؟
دي أختي فاطمة العروسة اللي فرحها بكرة.
Well done. You're really starting to put together some impressive questions and answers now. And what's more, you'll be able to use the Arabic you've learnt in so many different situations. Conversation 7, Part 2. Which one is the groom? Part 2 of the conversation takes place at the wedding party of Nadia's sister Fatima. Here, you'll get a chance to consolidate some of the descriptions and colours you've met in Part 1 of Conversation 7. On your marks. Part 2 only has a few additional words and phrases. Repeat them out loud. Here's Fatima.
أهي فاطمة.
The wedding dress.
فستان الفرح.
Groom.
عريس.
window,
شباك
brown.
بني
We want to say
نريد نقول
a small present.
هدية بسيطة.
Okay, just before we listen to part 2 of the conversation, let's quickly look at how to congratulate someone in Arabic. This is not only useful at weddings, but it also if someone has passed an exam, bought a new car, or just succeeded in achieving something difficult. You can simply say, congratulations,
مبروك
or you can emphasize it by saying, 1,000 congratulations.
ألف مبروك.
To reply, thank you very much, literally, may God bless you. To a male would be,
الله يبارك فيك.
or to a female would be,
الله يبارك فيك.
Get set. Nadia and Sami have arrived at Nadia's sister's wedding party with their friends. They point out the bride and the groom and some of the guests to Tariq and Farouz.
أهي فاطمة العروسة لابسة فستان الفرح الأبيض.
وين العريس؟ أي واحد؟
اللي واقف جنب الشباك هناك.
لابس بدلة وقميص أزرق؟
أيوة وشعره بني. ودول بنات أخويا الكبير نديم.
نريد نقول مبروك للعروسة والعريس. ألف مبروك فاطمة. ألف مبروك أحمد.
الله يبارك فيك.
مبروك حبيبتي. تفضلي هدية بسيطة.
Most of that conversation should have sounded quite familiar, but you may want to replay the conversation and concentrate especially on the part where Tariq and Farouz congratulate the bride and groom. Then you'll be ready. Over to you. Have a go at playing Tariq in the conversation at the wedding. I'll prompt you in English, as usual.
أهي فاطمة العروسة لابسة فستان الفرح الأبيض.
Ask, and where's the groom? Which one?
وين العريس؟ أي واحد؟
اللي واقف جنب الشباك هناك.
Ask, wearing a suit and blue shirt?
لابس بدلة وقميص أزرق؟
أيوة وشعره بني. ودول بنات أخويا الكبير نديم.
Say, we want to say, congratulations to the bride and groom.
نريد نقول مبروك للعروسة والعريس.
Now say, 1,000 congratulations, Fatima. 1,000 congratulations, Ahmed.
ألف مبروك فاطمة. ألف مبروك أحمد.
الله يبارك فيك.
You've now reached the end of Conversation 7. Congratulations! You've met some really important vocabulary, such as colours, clothes, and phrases for describing people. Take a well-earned break before moving on to Conversation 8. At the beach. Conversation 8. At the beach. In this conversation, we're off to the beach. You're going to learn vocabulary connected with beach holidays and more about plans and preferences. Part 1. Can we go fishing? Nadia and Sami have taken their friends to their holiday house on the Red Sea, a popular holiday destination for both Egyptians and foreigners. On your marks. Here are the new words and phrases you will need for this conversation. Repeat the Arabic out loud. The Red Sea.
البحر الأحمر.
Because.
لأن.
Calm. Quiet.
هادي.
Your house is comfortable.
بيتكم مريح.
The view is beautiful.
المنظر جميل.
Warm.
دافي.
Winter.
الشتاء.
December and January.
ديسمبر ويناير.
Can we go fishing here?
ممكن نصطاد سمك هنا؟
Diving.
الغطس.
Sharks.
سمك القرش.
This literally means shark fish. You will also hear a shortened version of sharks.
قرش.
Isn't it dangerous here?
مو خطر هنا؟
The sharks are far away.
القرش بعيد.
The shore. The beach.
الشاطئ.
Are we taking a boat tomorrow?
هناخد مركب بكرة؟
I don't like boats.
ما أحب المراكب.
I'll sleep.
أني راح أنام.
On the sand.
على الرمل.
Tablets for seasickness.
حبوب لدوار البحر.
Get set. The four friends have arrived in the holiday house and are discussing what to do tomorrow. Can you work out what they decide to do?
أنا أحب البحر الأحمر لأنه هادي.
بيتكم مريح نادية والمنظر جميل.
وكمان دافي في الشتاء في ديسمبر ويناير.
ممكن نصطاد سمك هنا؟
ممكن. والغطس كمان جميل.
غطس والسمك القرش مو خطر هنا؟
لا لا، القرش بعيد مش جنب الشاطئ.
هناخد مركب بكرة؟
لا، أني ما أحب المراكب. أني حنام على الرمل.
أنا عندي حبوب لدوار البحر.
So, they're going to take a boat out tomorrow to go fishing, even though Farouz is a bit reluctant, as she suffers from seasickness.
دوار.
Making sense of it. Let's look at a few of the phrases in Conversation 8 in more detail. We've already covered some of these points before, but this review will consolidate what you know. Note that you also find a full list of Arabic seasons and months on CD3. Firstly, remember how basic Arabic statements don't include the verb is, are, or am. So when Farouz says, the view is beautiful, you won't hear the equivalent of is.
المنظر جميل.
The same is true of, your house is comfortable.
بيتكم مريح.
And remember that com on the end of word means your when referring to more than one person. In this case, Nadia and Sarmi. So house is,
بيت.
and your house, for the plural, is.
بيتكم.
Can you work out what your house would be if talking about a single male?
بيتك.
What about your house if talking about a single female?
بيتك.
And do you remember the ending meaning my house?
بيتي.
How about our house?
بيتنا.
His house?
بيته.
Her house?
بيتها.
Getting to grips with the grammar. We've met a few more useful verbs in Conversation 8. We heard the Arabic for we go fishing.
نصطاد سمك.
Tarek says, can we go fishing here?
ممكن نصطاد سمك هنا؟
Remember that n on the front of a verb means we, as we like,
نحب.
or we go.
نروح.
We also heard I like in the sentence, I like the Red Sea.
أني أحب البحر الأحمر.
Arabic doesn't really have a future tense and generally uses the present tense to also talk about future plans. Sometimes you will hear an additional sound in front of the verb to make it clear that the verb refers to the future.
ح
There were 2 examples of this in Conversation 8. Are we taking a boat tomorrow?
حناخد مركب بكرة.
We take is
ناخد.
and I'll sleep on the sand.
أنا حنام على الرمل.
So, I sleep is.
أنام.
We also heard I don't like with the negative mehr in front of the verb.
ما أحب.
I don't like boats.
ما أحب المراكب.
As you know, mehr is used with verbs. But if you want to make a statement negative and it doesn't have a verb, you need to use.
مو.
This is also pronounced as.
مش.
Remember the question, isn't it dangerous here, from the conversation?
مو خطر هنا.
And the reply, not next to the shore.
مش جنب الشاطئ.
You can make almost all non-verbal statements negative in a similar way. For example, I'm not Egyptian, I'm Iraqi.
أني مو مصري. أني عراقي.
Or, Layla's not in the house, she's on the boat.
ليلى مش في البيت. هي على المركب.
Now, replay the complete conversation again before moving on to join in the conversation. Over to you. You're going to play the parts of Nadia and Sermi, saying the Arabic out loud after my prompts. Start by saying, I like the Red Sea because it's calm.
أنا أحب البحر الأحمر لأنه هادي.
بيتكم مريح نادية والمنظر جميل.
Say, and also warm in winter.
وكمان دافي في الشتاء.
In December and January.
في ديسمبر ويناير.
ممكن نصطاد سمك هنا.
Say, we can, and the diving is also lovely.
ممكن. والغطس كمان جميل.
غطس؟ والسمك القرش؟ مو خطر هنا؟
Say, no, the sharks are far away.
لا القرش بعيد.
Not next to the shore.
مش جنب الشاطئ.
Ask, are we taking a boat tomorrow?
حناخد مركب بكرة.
لا، أني ما أحب المراكب. أني حنام على الرمل.
Tell Farouz I have tablets for seasickness.
أنا عندي حبوب لدوار البحر.
You may need to repeat the conversation a few times before you're completely fluent. Then you'll be ready to move on to Conversation 8, Part 2. Out on the boat. The friends are out on the boat now. The sea is calm and they're hoping to catch something for lunch. On your marks. Here are some additional words and phrases you'll need for Part 2. Repeat them out loud. You're lucky, said to a female.
حظك حلو.
The pills are excellent.
الحبوب ممتازة.
The boatman can grill some fish for us.
المراكبي ممكن يشوي لنا السمك.
Great.
عظيم.
Okay. Reasonable.
معقول.
Is it okay for you to eat?
معقولة تاكل؟
Without.
بدون.
A small piece.
قطعة صغيرة.
Bait.
طعم.
In the box.
في الصندوق.
With. Get set. Ferouz is pleased that the tablets seem to be working.
حظك حلو يا فيروز. البحر هادي جدا.
والحبوب ممتازة.
المراكبي ممكن يشوي لنا السمك.
عظيم. أنا حصطاد قرش كبير.
أني ما أحب السمك كثير.
معقولة تاكل رز مع سلطة بدون سمك؟
لا، مو معقول. حاكل قطعة صغيرة.
فين الطعم؟ في الصندوق؟
أيوة، مع العصير والكولا.
Over to you. Now try playing the roles of Nadia and Tariq using my English prompts. Start by saying, "You're lucky, Ferouz."
حظك حلو يا فيروز.
The sea is very calm.
البحر هادي جدا.
والحبوب ممتازة.
The boatman can grill some fish for us.
المراكبي ممكن يشوي لنا السمك.
عظيم. أنا حصطاد قرش كبير.
Say, "I don't like fish very much."
أني ما أحب السمك كثير.
معقولة تاكل رز مع سلطة بدون سمك؟
Say, "No, it's not okay."
لا، مو معقول.
I'll eat a small piece.
حاكل قطعة صغيرة.
فين الطعم؟ في الصندوق؟
Say, "Yes, with the juice and the cola."
أيوة، مع العصير والكولا.
Congratulations! I think you're ready for a well-earned rest on the beach before moving on to conversation. Conversation 9. What's the matter? In this conversation, we'll learn how to describe your ailments and symptoms if you feel unwell. Part 1. I have a headache. It's the day after the boat trip and Ferouz isn't feeling too well. On your marks. Here are the new words and phrases you will need for this conversation. Repeat the Arabic out loud. What's the matter? To a female.
شبيش.
Sick.
مريض.
I feel dizzy.
عندي دوخة.
I have a headache.
عندي صداع.
Your face is a bit pale, or literally, a bit yellow.
وجهك أصفر شوية.
Maybe.
يمكن.
The sun.
الشمس.
Yesterday.
البارحة.
Shall I bring you some medicine?
أجيب لك دواء.
Pharmacy.
صيدلية.
I don't know.
ما أعرف.
Ask the pharmacist.
اسأل الصيدلي.
About
عن
the appropriate medicine.
الدواء المناسب.
You take it easy. To a female.
استريحي أنتِ.
I'll come back straight away.
أنا حرجع.
Get set. Tariq notices that Ferouz is pale and offers to go to the pharmacy to get her some medicine.
شبيك فيروز؟ أنتِ مريضة؟
عندي دوخة وصداع.
نعم، وجهك أصفر شوية.
يمكن كل هذا من الشمس والبحر على المركب البارحة.
يمكن. ما عندنا حبوب. أجيب لك دواء من الصيدلية؟
ما أعرف. اسأل الصيدلي عن الدواء المناسب.
استريحي أنتِ وأنا حرجع حالا.
Making sense of it. In Conversation 9, you heard a familiar phrase used in a different context.
عندي دوخة وصداع.
You know the first word means I have.
عندي.
You can also use this phrase to describe ailments in a similar way to English. So, I have a headache is,
عندي صداع.
and I feel dizzy, or literally, I have dizziness, is.
عندي دوخة.
Other common ailments you could use this phrase with include, I have a stomachache,
عندي مغص.
I have diarrhea,
عندي إسهال.
I have a cold.
عندي برد.
And of course, as you know, you can use a different ending to change the meaning to you have, or she has, and so on. For example, she has a cold.
عندها برد.
Do you have a headache? To a man.
عندك صداع.
He feels dizzy.
عنده دوخة.
You also heard a very useful all-purpose phrase for asking someone what the matter is.
شبيك.
You can probably work out how this would change if Tarek had been talking to a man.
شبيك.
Getting to grips with the grammar. So far in the conversations, you've learnt several plural words, such as pills,
حبوب.
boats,
مراكب.
tickets,
تذاكر.
daughters or girls.
بنات.
You may be wondering if there are any rules for how to make words plural in Arabic. The answer is that although there are common plural patterns, there aren't any definite rules that will tell you the plural of any particular word. Many plurals share the same consonants as the singular word, but have different vowels. Listen again to those plurals, this time with the singular word first. Repeat them after the Arabic. Pill, pills.
حبة. حبوب.
Boat, boats.
مركب. مراكب.
Ticket, tickets.
تذكرة. تذاكر.
Girl, girls.
بنت. بنات.
You can think of these plurals as similar to English plurals, such as mouse and mice, man and men. The difference is that most Arabic plurals are formed like this, whereas only a few English ones are. It's better at first to learn just individual useful plural words as you go along. The patterns will start to become clearer as you progress. Now, replay the conversation once more before moving on to playing the part. Over to you. You're going to play the part of Tarek, saying the Arabic out loud after my prompts. Start by asking, what's the matter, Feroz?
شبيك فيروز؟
Are you sick?
أنت مريضة؟
عندي دوخة وصداع.
Say, yes, your face is a bit pale.
نعم وجهك أصفر شوية.
يمكن كل هذا من الشمس والبحر على المركب البارحة.
Say, maybe we don't have any pills.
يمكن ما عندنا حبوب.
And ask, shall I bring you some medicine from the pharmacy?
أجيب لك دواء من الصيدلية؟
ما أعرف. اسأل الصيدلي عن الدواء المناسب.
Say, you take it easy.
استريحي أنت.
And I'll come back straight away.
واني حرجع حالا.
How did you manage with this? You may need to practice the longer phrases a few more times before you can say them fluently. And you can always go back to the complete conversation. Conversation 9, Part 2, At the Pharmacy. Now we're going to go with Tarek to the pharmacy and use the new phrases you've learnt in Part 1 to ask for advice. On your marks. There are some additional words and phrases you'll need for Part 2. Repeat them out loud. Hello and welcome.
أهلا وسهلا.
My wife.
زوجتي.
What's the matter with her?
شبيها.
Symptoms.
أعراض.
Temperature.
حرارة.
Diarrhea.
إسهال.
We were.
كنا.
Sunstroke.
ضربة شمس.
A pill every 4 hours.
حبة كل 4 ساعات.
Complete rest.
راحة تامة.
Get set. Tarek is now in the pharmacy and is asking for advice from the pharmacist about Farouz's symptoms. Can you make out what the pharmacist recommends?
أهلا وسهلا. أي خدمة يا أستاذ؟
زوجتي مريضة وما أعرف شبيها.
إيه الأعراض لو سمحت؟
وجهها أصفر وعندها دوخة وصداع.
في حرارة؟ عندها إسهال؟
لا، لكن البارحة كنا على مركب في الشمس.
عندي دواء لضربة الشمس. حبة كل 4 ساعات.
شي ثاني يا دكتور؟
مية كتير وراحة تامة.
Did you hear the pharmacist's diagnosis of sunstroke?
ضربة الشمس.
He gives Tarek some medicine and also recommends lots of water and complete rest.
مية كتير وراحة تامة.
Listen again to the conversation before moving on to play the part of. Over to you. Now try playing the role of Tarek in the pharmacy using my English prompts.
أهلا وسهلا. أي خدمة يا أستاذ؟
Tell the pharmacist, my wife is sick.
زوجتي مريضة.
And add, I don't know what's the matter with her.
وما أعرف شبيها.
إيه الأعراض لو سمحت؟
Say her face is pale.
وجهها أصفر.
Say, and she feels dizzy and has a headache.
وعندها دوخة وصداع.
في حرارة؟ عندها إسهال؟
Say no, but yesterday we were on a boat in the sun.
لا، لكن البارحة كنا على مركب في الشمس.
عندي دواء لضربة الشمس. حبة كل 4 ساعات.
Ask, anything else, doctor?
شي ثاني يا دكتور؟
مية كتير وراحة تامة.
Well done. You're now able to describe some basic ailments and ask for advice in the pharmacy. This is very useful vocabulary for any trip. Replay part 2 of the conversation again to make sure you understand all the exchanges before you move on to the final conversation 10. Conversation 10. Taking your leave. This is the last conversation on CDs 1 and 2 of your Teach Yourself Arabic Conversation program. You've come a long way, and this is a good time to remind yourself of just how much you've achieved. We've been to the airport, the hotel, the restaurant, the shop, the souk, the museum, the beach resort, and the pharmacy. You've learned how to greet people, talk about yourself and your family. Say what you like and don't like. Ask for and give directions. Understand numbers and prices. Make basic requests. Talk about your plans. Describe people and explain your ailments. That's an impressive start, and you should congratulate yourself on your progress. We'll end by looking at some useful phrases for staying in touch with your new Arabic-speaking friends and saying goodbye at the end of your stay. Part 1. Staying in touch. In Part 1 of Conversation 10, we're going to join Nadia and Sami as they say goodbye to Farouz and Tarek. On your marks. Here are the new words and phrases you will need for this conversation. Repeat the Arabic out loud. Did you enjoy Egypt?
مصر عجبتك؟
I enjoyed it a lot.
عجبتني كثير.
It was a happy holiday.
كانت إجازة سعيدة.
You must send me, said to a female.
لازم تبعتيلي
All your news.
كل أخبارك.
Of course.
أكيد.
Email address.
عنوان بالإيميل.
I've been wanting to visit Dubai.
أنا نفسي أزور دبي
For a long time.
من زمان.
Next summer.
الصيف الجاي.
God willing.
إن شاء الله.
Get set. It's time for Farouz and Tarek to return to Dubai after their holiday in Egypt. They're standing in the hotel lobby, packed and ready to leave.
مصر عجبتك يا طارق؟
عجبتني كثير. كانت إجازة سعيدة.
لازم تبعتيلي كل أخبارك يا فيروز.
أكيد. أكيد. عندي عنوانك بالإيميل.
حنشوفكم بدبي؟
أنا نفسي أزور دبي من زمان.
الصيف الجاي إن شاء الله.
Making sense of it. When Sarmi asked Tarek, "Did you enjoy Egypt?" he was actually saying, "Did Egypt please you?"
مصر عجبتك؟
Egypt is the subject of the verb to please, and you is the ak on the end. Tarek answers Sami's question by saying, "I enjoyed it a lot," or more literally, "It pleased me a lot." Listen now for ni on the end of the verb meaning me.
عجبتني كثير.
Let's also look at the phrase used in the conversation for email address. This means address by email.
عنوان بالإيميل.
So, if you want to say your email address, my email address, and so on, you need to add the appropriate ending to the first part, which means address. The second part, meaning by email, remains unchanged.
عنوانك بالإيميل. عنوانك بالإيميل. عنواني بالإيميل.
And if you don't add by email, you'd be referring to your postal address.
عنواني 7 شارع النيل في الزمالك.
Getting to grips with the grammar. As this is the final conversation, we're going to have a quick review of some of the main grammar points you've covered in Teach Yourself Arabic Conversation. It should all be making much more sense now you've heard Arabic in action in different contexts. Firstly, you've learned that all nouns are either masculine or feminine, and that most feminine nouns end with a. So, hotel, street, and souk are all masculine.
فندق. شارع. سوق.
Coffee, holiday, and ticket are feminine.
قهوة إجازة تذكرة.
You've also learned that il means the. For example, the hotel,
الفندق
the holiday,
الإجازة.
and that adjectives come after nouns in Arabic. So, a happy holiday is...
إجازة سعيدة.
You've learned how to say I, he, and she.
أنا هو هي.
And the three different ways of saying you to a male, to a female, and to more than one person.
أنت أنتي أنتم.
We've also seen how am, is, and are don't usually appear in Arabic sentences. So, I am Egyptian is simply
أنا مصري.
and is Farus in the house?
فيروز في البيت.
But you've also learnt some useful basic verbs. And know that a verb referring to I starts with a, we starts with n, and you with t. For example, I like fish.
أحب السمك.
We're going to the market.
نروح السوق.
You can visit Al-Azhar.
ممكن تزور الأزهر.
And we've seen how you can add the following to make a verb future,
ح
and how you can make a verb negative by adding the following.
ما
For example, we're going to take a boat tomorrow.
حناخد مركب بكرة.
I don't like boats.
ما أحب المراكب.
You've met many examples of the Arabic endings that you can add to words to mean my, your, our, and so on. So, my name is Sarmi is,
اسمي سامي.
and what's your name? Said to a man, and then a woman is,
اسمك إيه؟ اسمك إيه؟
our house is in Cairo is,
بيتنا في القاهرة.
These same endings appear on the end of the phrase meaning I have, you have, and so on. So, I have your email address is,
عندي عنوانك بالإيميل.
and we have a daughter whose name is Layla is,
عندنا بنت اسمها ليلى.
These basic principles and the other points covered in this program will help you to appreciate the building blocks of Arabic and to manipulate phrases to suit your circumstances. This is a big advantage over simply learning a few sentences parrot fashion without really understanding how they're constructed. Now, before you have a go at playing the part in Conversation 10, replay the complete conversation again and look out for some of the points. Over to you. Play the parts of Sami and Nadia, giving the Arabic after my prompts as usual. Start by asking, did you enjoy Egypt, Tariq?
مصر عجبتك يا طارق؟
عجبتني كثير. كانت إجازة سعيدة.
Say, you must send me all your news, Farouz.
لازم تبعتيلي كل أخبارك يا فيروز.
أكيد أكيد عندي عنوانك بالإيميل.
حنشوفكم بدبي.
Say, I've been wanting to visit Dubai for a long time.
أنا نفسي أزور دبي من زمان.
Now say, next summer, God willing.
الصيف الجاي إن شاء الله.
Did you manage that the first time around? If not, play it again. Well done. We've nearly reached the end of the conversations now. but there's just time to listen in on our friends one more time. Conversation 10, Part 2, Saying Goodbye. Sami and Nadia are saying goodbye to their friends now. Before you listen, here are the final additional words and phrases you'll need for Part 2. Repeat them out loud as usual. Cairo Airport.
مطار القاهرة.
The new building.
المبنى الجديد.
Domestic.
داخلي.
Belonging to or associated with.
بتاع.
Egypt Air.
مصر للطيران.
International.
دولي.
Emirates Airlines.
خطوط الإمارات.
Bag. Suitcase.
شنطة.
Get set. Nadia and Sami are hailing a taxi to take Farouz and Tarek to Cairo Airport, but oh no, it's the same taxi driver that brought them from the airport at the beginning of their trip. Let's hope they end up at the right airport building.
تاكسي. مطار القاهرة من فضلك. المبنى الجديد.
المبنى الجديد نمرة 1.
لا 2.
أيوة أنا عارف، الداخلي بتاع مصر للطيران.
لا، المبنى الدولي بتاع خطوط الإمارات.
أيوة أنا عارف. كم شنطة؟ 3 دول؟
لا 2 بس. نشوفكم الصيف الجاي يا نادية.
إن شاء الله. مع السلامة يا فيروز. مع السلامة يا طارق.
مع السلامة.
Over to you. Now play Nadia and Tarek's part. Start by saying, Taxi! Cairo Airport, please.
تاكسي. مطار القاهرة من فضلك.
And add the new building.
المبنى الجديد.
المبنى الجديد نمرة 1.
Say, no, 2.
لا 2.
أيوة أنا عارف، الداخلي بتاع مصر للطيران.
Say, no, the international building.
لا، المبنى الدولي.
Belonging to Emirates Airlines.
بتاع خطوط الإمارات.
أيوة أنا عارف. كم شنطة؟ 3 دول؟
لا 2 بس. نشوفكم الصيف الجاي يا نادية.
Say, God willing, goodbye Farouz, goodbye Tarek.
إن شاء الله. مع السلامة يا فيروز. مع السلامة يا طارق.
Say, goodbye.
مع السلامة.
And now we must all say goodbye. Try to go back and replay all the conversations again. You'll be surprised at how easy some of the earlier ones sound now. You can get some more useful practice by listening to the 3rd CD too. This will reinforce what you already know and will also give you strategies to help you work out what people are saying in Arabic, even when you don't know every word that's being spoken. You'll find you're now well equipped to handle most situations confidently. So, good luck on your trip. Teach yourself Arabic conversation. CD 3. Listening skills. This CD will build on what you've learnt in the conversations, as well as prepare you for understanding the gists of Arabic in different contexts. As you learn Arabic, you will become aware of differences in the way language is spoken and written. Some of these differences are to do with regional variations, while others are to do with the level of formality and sophistication of the situation. Modern Standard Arabic is the common language of all Arabic-speaking countries and is used for pan-Arab communication and for most written and formal spoken Arabic. You can think of Modern Standard as the nucleus of the Arabic language. Around the nucleus orbit many different regional dialects, some orbiting close to the nucleus and others in the outer reaches. It's largely geography and the influence of other languages and cultures that determines how close a dialect may be to the standard. For example, the spoken Arabic of Iraq and the Arabian Peninsula tends to be closer to Standard Arabic, but the dialects of northwest Africa, such as Morocco and Algeria, tend to be heavily influenced by French and local languages, such as Berber, occasionally making them almost incomprehensible even to other Arabs. The variations in dialect are more obvious in basic everyday conversation. As the content of a conversation becomes more sophisticated, the Arabic will naturally move closer towards the standard. So, part of a conversation in the market about buying pears will show more variation than a conversation about a UN resolution. Arabs from different parts of the Middle East will also adjust their language when talking to each other to avoid certain very local phrases they know might cause a problem for their listener. This listening CD will equip you with some extra strategies for listening to Arabic in 3 main ways. You will have a lot of chances to practice your listening skills and exercise your powers of deduction. You will arm yourself with some useful phrases so that you can ask someone to repeat what they've just said. You will be introduced to some of the variations of spoken Arabic so you can recognize a variety of basic words and phrases. Conversation 1. Meeting and greeting. In Conversation 1, on CD 1, you heard 2 Iraqis, Faruz and Tarek, meet up with an Egyptian friend, Nadia, and her son. You've already learned a couple of ways of saying hello. The first is more common in Egypt, and the second more common in Iraq and surrounding countries.
أهلا.
يا هلا.
Arabic has more greetings and interjections than you can hope to learn during this course. Many specifically tailored to particular situations, such as going on a journey, taking medicine, being freshly bathed, sitting down to eat, and so on. As a learner, stick to the all-purpose greetings at first, and then you can expand your repertoire as you progress. 2 more useful all-purpose greetings are welcome,
مرحب.
and a more formal greeting, literally meaning peace be on you.
السلام عليكم.
To this you can reply, and on you be peace.
وعليكم السلام.
In Conversation 1, you also met 2 ways of saying, how are you? The first is a common Egyptian phrase.
إزيك. إزيك.
And the second is a phrase common in Iraq and surrounding countries.
شلونك؟ شلونك؟
Remember that the slight variation in the ending depends on whether you are talking to a male or a female. We can add another more standard Arabic phrase also meaning, how are you? And used throughout the Arab world, particularly in the Arabian Peninsula. It literally means, how is your state? And the ending changes when said to a male or a female.
كيف حالك؟ كيف حالك؟
This phrase sometimes becomes, how is the state? Or how is the health?
كيف الحال؟ كيف الصحة؟
The important thing when listening to Arabic is to recognize variations. As far as speaking is concerned, pick the one you find easiest and use that. Now, listen to two short conversations in which you will hear a variety of different greetings. Listen for the ones you know.
أهلا إبراهيم، كيف حالك؟ عاش من شافك؟
يا هلا محمد أخويا، شلونك؟
الحمد لله، نشكر الله.
السلام عليكم يا أستاذ عزيز، كيف الحال؟
وعليكم السلام يا مدام، كيف الصحة؟
الحمد لله بخير.
You should have been able to pick out some of the greetings in those conversations. The first conversation between two male friends started with, "Hello, Ibrahim. How are you?"
أهلا يا إبراهيم، كيف حالك؟
This conversation also contained the Iraqi variation of, "How are you?" and the reply, "Thanks be to God."
شلونك؟
الحمد لله.
The second conversation was more formal between two work colleagues. The woman greeting the man saying, "Peace be on you, Mr. Aziz. How are you?"
السلام عليكم يا أستاذ عزيز، كيف الحال؟
He used the reply, "And on you be peace," and asks how she is.
وعليكم السلام يا مدام، كيف الصحة؟
Try replaying the two conversations, listening specifically for the greetings you know, but not worrying too much about other phrases you don't understand. If you can get the gist of what's going on, you'll be better prepared with your own greeting if somebody suddenly turns to you. Conversation 2. Getting around. One of the most common of the regional variations is the pronunciation of the Arabic J, or Jim. In Standard Arabic, and in most of the spoken dialects, this letter is pronounced J. But most Egyptians will pronounce it as a hard G. Listen to some common words pronounced both ways.
جمل.
جمل.
That means camel. Now, here is the word for beautiful or lovely.
جميل.
جميل.
And remember how in Conversation 2 on CD1, Feruz, an Iraqi, said, "My husband."
زوجي.
Listen to how Nadia, an Egyptian, would pronounce it.
زوجي.
You can see that once you're aware of the difference in pronunciation, words are recognizable even when spoken in different accents. It's always useful to have a few phrases for asking people to repeat what they've said, or to slow down in case you didn't catch it the first time around. Say it again, please.
قول تاني من فضلك.
That phrase would change slightly if you were talking to a woman.
قولي تاني من فضلك.
Slow down.
على مهلك.
And talking to a woman?
على مهلك.
I don't understand.
ما فهمت.
This time, repeat the Arabic. Say it again, please.
قول تاني من فضلك.
And to a woman?
قولي تاني من فضلك.
Slow down.
على مهلك.
And to a woman?
على مهلك.
I don't understand.
ما فهمت.
Another strategy for listening is to train yourself to pick out the relevant information while ignoring words and phrases you don't fully understand. Although there is no guarantee you'll be able to grasp the gist, you'll be surprised how many times an educated guess will work. And much of it is a matter of confidence. Let's try to put this strategy into practice by listening to two short conversations. First, though, we need to review the numbers 1 to 10. Here's 1 to 10.
1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10
So, what was 5?
5
And 8?
8
1, 2, 3,
1 2 3
9, 10.
9 10
Okay, now we're ready for those conversations. They both take place in shops. You have to try and listen for how many items the customer wants and what the item is. You'll need to make an educated guess here based on the context. For example, if the conversation is in a butcher's shop, you can assume the customer isn't asking for a CD player. The first conversation takes place in a fish shop.
2 كيلو جمبري كبير من فضلك.
طازة ولا المجمد؟
طازة، بتاع البحر الأحمر لو سمحت.
The next conversation takes place at the grocer's.
صباح الخير أحمد، تريد شي؟
4 علب كونفليكس رجاءً.
جوعان أنت اليوم أحمد.
You may have managed to decipher something, and at this stage of your learning, that is an achievement in itself. Let's look in a bit more detail. Firstly, in the fish shop, you may have spotted that the customer is asking for 2 kilos of something.
2 كيلو جمبري كبير.
In addition, it's 2 kilos of something big.
2 كيلو جمبري كبير.
So that already narrows it down. What might you find in a fishmonger that came in different sizes? The missing word in the sentence is prawns.
2 كيلو جمبري كبير.
Listen again to the whole conversation now that you can spot the key phrase.
2 كيلو جمبري كبير من فضلك.
طازة ولا المجمد؟
طازة، بتاع البحر الأحمر لو سمحت.
And how about the grocer's? You should have heard the English word cornflakes leaping out at you. But how many packets?
4 علب كونفليكس.
4 packets. He must have a big family. Listen again.
صباح الخير أحمد، تريد شي؟
4 علب كونفليكس رجاءً.
جوعان أنت اليوم أحمد.
You're doing really well if you're managing to understand just a fraction of these exchanges. They're coming at you at almost normal speaking speed and include some words you've never met before. You may need to replay them again and again until you start to pick out the words which will give you the clues you need. The secret of good listening is a bit like learning any new skill. You just have to go with the flow and not panic. Think of a child learning to feed itself or walk or swim or ride a bike. It may not look very accurate or elegant to start with, but the child will never learn the skill if it doesn't throw itself into the process. Conversation 3. Basic requests. We've seen how Arabic accents can vary from region to region, and you've met the example of the Arabic J, which can be pronounced j or g. As well as the accent, some of the basic vocabulary and expressions will vary, producing differences similar to those in English, such as sidewalk and pavement. These differences can be confusing for a learner, but the key is to look out for common elements. For example, you've met the question, "What's your name?"
اسمك إيه؟
But in Iraq, it would probably sound more like,
شنو اسمك؟
and in more formal Arabic you might hear.
ما اسمك؟
The clues are that they all sound like a question and contain the word for your name.
اسمك.
So, it isn't hard to guess what you're being asked. It's the word for what that's changing. In Egypt, it's usually
إيه؟
whereas in Iraqi Arabic it would usually be.
شنو؟
A more formal way of saying what is.
ما اسمك؟
You'll be pleased to know that not all Arabic words have this many alternatives. The highest level of variation is largely limited to basic vocabulary. But it's just as well to try and train yourself to recognize the basic greetings and questions in the variety of. So, why don't you listen in on two guests checking in at the reception of a hotel? First time you listen, just try to catch their names.
مساء الخير.
مساء النور، حجزت غرفة لشخصين.
شنو اسمك من فضلك؟
مجدي حسن.
مجدي حسن. نعم، غرفة رقم 5.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
نريد نحجز غرفة لأسبوع.
لأسبوع. ممكن. ما اسمك من فضلك؟
سولتر. جون سولتر.
مرحب.
Did you hear the names were Magdi Hassan and John Salter? I'm sure at least you heard the second English name. Now, listen again in two sections. Notice that the first guest says he's booked a room for 2 people,
غرفة لشخصين.
and the receptionist puts him in room 5.
غرفة رقم 5. مساء الخير.
مساء النور، حجزت غرفة لشخصين.
شنو اسمك من فضلك؟
مجدي حسن.
مجدي حسن. نعم، غرفة رقم 5.
Now, the second guest, he hasn't booked. He tells the receptionist, we'd like to book a room for a week.
نريد نحجز غرفة لأسبوع.
The receptionist uses the more standard language, perhaps recognizing the guest as a foreigner and not wanting to use a more local expression.
ما اسمك؟
Listen to the second half again now.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
نريد نحجز غرفة لأسبوع.
لأسبوع. ممكن. ما اسمك من فضلك؟
سولتر. جون سولتر.
مرحب.
So, you can see that if you keep your ears tuned for familiar words in Arabic and know some basic facts about how dialects vary, you can have a really good try at understanding a conversation. Conversation 4. Shopping. Another common difference in pronunciation is that the Arabic letter th is often pronounced t. Listen to the Arabic word for 3 pronounced in the 2 different ways.
ثلاثة.
ثلاثة.
It's worth recognizing both pronunciations, although it doesn't matter which one you use yourself. Here are some more numbers pronounced in both ways. 2,
2.
2
8,
8.
8
30,
30.
30.
It always takes time to absorb numbers in a foreign language. So, now we're going to have a go at listening to some large numbers at natural speed. There'll be a pause after the Arabic for you to try and work out the number, and then I'll give you the answer. And don't worry if you don't get them all first time around. We're going to give you another chance at the end. Okay, here we go.
20
20,
25.
25,
125.
125,
34.
34,
76
76,
150.
150,
158.
158.
42
42.
113
113. Well done. Even if you only got one or two of those the first time around, you're doing very well. Now, let's try exactly the same numbers again, and you'll see how much better you are at catching the amount.
20
20.
25
25.
125
125.
34
34.
76
76.
150
150.
158
158.
42
42.
113
113. How did you get on that time? We'll give you a chance to practice listening out for numbers at natural speed again a little. There are some regional differences in the basic way of requesting what you want. We've already met the expression meaning I'd like.
أريد
This expression is common throughout the Arab world, but in Egypt you may also hear
عاوز
this means I want.
عاوز خاتم
I want a ring. If you're a female, you need to say this with a on the end.
عاوزة خاتم
There is also another common expression meaning I want.
بدي
This is an important expression to recognize, as it's used in many Arab countries such as Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon. It doesn't change depending on whether you're a man or a woman.
بدي خاتم
بدي
Let's transpose Tariq's conversation in the Cairo souk that you met on CD1 and have an Egyptian woman buying the ring in a souk in Iraq. Listen for the change in accent, especially the soft je and th, and for different ways of saying I want and this.
مساء الخير
مساء النور عاوزة خاتم لبنتي
عندها كم سنة
25 سنة
تفضلي خاتم جميل ذهب
لا عاوزة فضة ده فضة بكام ده
نعم فضة ب190 دينار
أوف ده غالي قوي
لا نشوف الوزن طيب 180
175 جنيه آخر كلام
ماشي مبروك على بنتك
Did you hear the differences and similarities? Here are some of the main differences. On CD1, Tariq says, I'd like a ring for my daughter.
أريد خاتم لبنتي
But in the conversation you've just heard, the woman used the Egyptian phrase for I want.
عاوزة خاتم لبنتي
The Iraqi stallholder uses the soft j pronunciation, but the Egyptian stallholder uses the hard g. You can hear this in the phrase, a beautiful gold ring.
خاتم جميل ذهب
خاتم جميل ذهب
On CD1, Tariq uses the Iraqi words for I want and for this when he says, I want silver. Is this silver? How much is this one?
أريد فضة هذا فضة كم هذا
But the woman uses the Egyptian equivalents.
عاوزة فضة ده فضة بكام ده؟
Another pronunciation difference is the th, which in Egypt is pronounced t. You can hear this in the number 180.
180.
180.
Listen to the conversation again and look out for the differences we've highlighted. You could also replay Conversation 4, Part 2 from CD1 for comparison.
مساء الخير.
مساء النور. عاوزة خاتم لبنتي.
عندها كم سنة؟
25 سنة.
تفضلي، خاتم جميل ذهب.
لا، عاوزة فضة. ده فضة؟ بكام ده؟
نعم، فضة ب190 دينار.
أوف، ده غالي قوي.
لا، نشوف الوزن. طيب، 180.
175 جنيه. آخر كلام.
ماشي، مبروك على بنتك.
If you can recognize some of the main regional differences, you'll have a better chance of being able to understand the gist of Arabic throughout the Middle East. Now, have a go at trying to pick out the main information from conversations at natural speed. You're going to hear two conversations. The first in a Baghdad souk and the second in a Cairo souk. In both cases, the customer wants to buy a lantern.
فانوس.
This is the traditional Ramadan toy for children. Try to concentrate on the prices mentioned and ignore any unfamiliar phrases. Can you understand how much the two customers agree to pay?
صباح الخير. أريد فانوس لابني.
أكو 50 دينار وأكو 80.
انطيني فانوس ب50.
تفضلي، رمضان كريم.
Now for the conversation in the Cairo souk.
مساء الخير. عاوزة فانوس لبنتي من فضلك.
فانوس بالبطارية ب15 وابو شمعة ب9.
اديني أبو بطارية. أمان أكتر.
صح يا مدام، رمضان كريم.
Did you hear the prices? In Baghdad, the stallholder offered a choice of lanterns for 50 and 80 dinars.
أكو 50 دينار وأكو 80.
And the customer chose the 50 dinar one.
انطيني فانوس ب50.
Finally, the stallholder wished her a happy Ramadan.
رمضان كريم.
In Cairo, the stallholder offered a choice of lanterns with batteries.
بالبطارية.
These cost £15, and also lanterns with candles.
أبو شمعة.
These cost £9. The customer chose a battery-powered one because she thought they were safer.
أمان أكتر.
Listen again to the conversations.
صباح الخير. أريد فانوس لابني.
أكو 50 دينار وأكو 80.
انطيني فانوس ب50.
تفضلي، رمضان كريم.
مساء الخير. عاوزة فانوس لبنتي من فضلك.
فانوس بالبطارية ب15 وابو شمعة ب9.
اديني أبو بطارية. أمان أكتر.
صح يا مدام، رمضان كريم.
Well done. You're attuning your ear to picking out only the most relevant information from natural speech. Don't forget, you can also use the expressions we've already met if you want someone to talk more slowly.
على مهلك.
This means slow down. Say it again, please, would be
قول تاني من فضلك.
Finally, have a go at taking part in a conversation in the souk yourself. You're going to play the part of the customer buying a brooch.
بروش.
I'll tell you what to say. Don't worry, you've already learnt everything you need. It's not important which expressions and accents you use, or even if you mix them up. The key is to make yourself understood. Ready? First, the stall holder is going to greet you, and then I'll tell you what to say.
مساء الخير.
Reply, good evening.
أي خدمة؟
Say, I want a brooch.
بروش فضة؟
He's asking you if you want a silver brooch. Say, no, a gold brooch.
هذا بروش جميل.
Ask how much it is.
195.
Ask him to speak more slowly.
195.
195? Say, that's very expensive.
طيب قول 180.
180? Still too much. Offer 170 and tell him that's your final offer.
ماشي مبروك.
Well done. Now you've had a go, listen to a model conversation and then you'll get a chance to try again, filling in any parts you were unsure of the first time around. Here's the model first.
مساء الخير.
مساء النور.
أي خدمة؟
أريد بروش.
Or you could have said,
عاوزة بروش.
بروش فضة؟
لا، بروش ذهب.
هذا بروش جميل.
كم؟
195.
على مهلك.
195.
هذا غالي كثير.
طيب قولي 180.
170 آخر كلام.
ماشي مبروك.
now you've had a chance to listen to the model, replay the prompted version and have another go. We've reached the end of the additional listening and speaking skills for conversation. Conversation 5. Sightseeing. In Conversation 5 on CD1, you heard Tariq and Farus talking about their sightseeing plans. You heard Tariq say,
أريد أروح خان الخليلي والسوق هناك.
Now, listen to Sarmi say the same sentence.
عاوز أروح خان الخليلي والسوق هناك.
There are two main differences between how Tariq says the sentence and how Sarmi says it. But before we look at the differences, listen again and concentrate on the similarities.
أريد أروح خان الخليلي والسوق هناك.
عاوز أروح خان الخليلي والسوق هناك.
There is a lot that doesn't change, and this will help you to understand the gist of different dialects, even when there are some unfamiliar words and phrases. Knowing a little more about the differences will help you to understand specific phrases in the major dialects. The first difference in the phrase we heard was the phrase for I want. Tariq says,
أريد.
The second difference in our original phrase was in the pronunciation of the word souk, or market. Listen to Tariq and Sami.
سوق.
سوق.
This is the third of the main three pronunciation differences between the different Arabic dialects. In Standard Arabic, the letter on the end of souk, or market, is pronounced as
ق سوق.
but in the Egyptian dialect, this Arabic sound is not usually pronounced like this. It is either dropped, just as the letter T might be in a Cockney pronunciation of bottle, or it's pronounced G. Egyptians tend to drop the letter, in Iraqis to pronounce it as a G. Listen to both the Egyptian and Iraqi pronunciations. Coffee.
قهوة.
قهوة.
Moon.
قمر.
قمر
pen,
قلم
قلم
shark.
قرش
قرش.
Even though the pronunciation varies, the words retain their rhythm and are recognizable in both accents. With all these regional differences in pronunciation, you should try to recognize variations, but you can use the pronunciation you prefer, or whichever is more appropriate to the region you are visiting. Now, we've looked at some more regional differences. We're going to have another go at picking some key information out of a natural speed dialogue. Tariq and Farouz are back in Dubai, and Tariq is talking about his plans for the weekend. Friday is the main day off in the Middle East, and offices often close early on Thursday to make a 1.5-day weekend. The dialogue contains some unfamiliar words and phrases which you should try to ignore in order to concentrate on the gist. See if you can pick out any information about what Tariq wants to do on Thursday.
يوم الخميس.
And Friday?
يوم الجمعة.
Ready?
طارق، وين تروح يوم الخميس؟
والله أحب أروح سوق الذهب.
سوق الذهب؟ ليش؟
أريد أشتري بروش لأمي.
ويوم الجمعة؟
نلعب تنس أنا وأخوي علي.
علي، لازم ترجعون هنا بعد التنس للشاي.
شو وقت؟
2:30.
ماشي الحال.
Did you manage to pick out the two things Tariq was planning on doing on Thursday and Friday? On Thursday, he wanted to go to the gold market.
سوق الذهب.
Maybe you also understood something of what he wants to buy. A brooch for his mother.
بروش لأمي.
He uses the phrase, I want to buy.
أريد أشتري بروش لأمي.
I'm sure you heard what he wants to do on Friday. Play tennis.
نلعب تنس.
He's going to play with his brother Ali.
أني وأخوي علي.
And after that, Farouz wants them to come back to have some tea. She says, you must come back here after tennis for tea.
لازم ترجعون هنا بعد التنس للشاي.
Even if you got some of that information the first time around, you're doing really well. Now that you've been given a few more hints, play the conversation again and see how much better you can understand the gist. It's often surprising how obvious something seems when you know what you're listening. Conversation 6. At the restaurant. You've learnt more about Arabic food in Conversation 6 and listened to Farouz and Tariq ordering a meal in a restaurant. Although food varies from region to region, a typical Arabic meal would consist of some dips, bread and perhaps pickles to start, followed by a piece of grilled or fried meat or fish with salad, rice or potatoes. Desserts are often sweet milk puddings, fruit or syrupy cakes. Food is a key element in any culture, and regional differences often show up as variations in the spoken language. Think of how, for example, British and Americans refer to food using different terms such as courgette or zucchini, aubergine or eggplant, semi-skimmed or half and half, and so on. The same is true in the Arab world, only the situation is exaggerated by the number of dialects and the variety of influences from outside cultures on the cuisine. So, the Iraqi version of potatoes and tomatoes is
بطاطا. طماطة.
This changes slightly in Egypt, becoming
بطاطس. طماطم.
Food is one area where there sometimes isn't a standard Arabic word, only the various regional alternatives. Occasionally, you even have the same word referring to different food in different regions. For example,
بطيخ.
means cantaloupe in Iraq, but watermelon in Egypt
لبن
means milk in Egypt, but yogurt in... Before you're put off by all these different names for food, you should know that there's also a substantial core of original Arabic words that remain fairly consistent throughout the region. Here are a few useful examples for you to add to your vocabulary. Figs,
تين
apples,
تفاح
apricots,
مشمش
bananas,
موز
cucumbers,
خيار
olives,
زيتون
garlic,
ثوم
carrots.
جزر
Listen to those fruit and vegetables again a few times, and then move on to the prompted dialogue, where you'll get a chance to practice them in. You've done quite a lot of listening on this CD, and now it's time to have a go at taking part in an unprepared conversation. I'll prompt you in English with what to say, and don't worry, I won't ask you to say anything that you haven't already learnt in the conversations so far. So let's start. You're in a market and want to buy some fruit and vegetables. You approach the stall. Start by saying good morning to the stallholder.
صباح النور أي خدمة؟
Ask whether they have any apricots today.
لا ما عندناش مشمش بس فيه تفاح وتين حلو
Apples and figs. Say a kilo of apples, please.
كيلو تفاح حاضر حاجة تاني؟
Ask how much is the okra.
كيلو البامية ب20 جنيه
Say half a kilo of okra and 2 kilos of carrots.
اتفضلي الجزر والبامية
Ask how much the bill is.
45 جنيه من فضلك
Say, here you are, £50.
5 باقي مع السلامة
Say, goodbye. Now, listen to the model version of the conversation before having another go. Each time you repeat the speaking practice, you'll find you improve, but make sure you speak out loud and not in your head. This is the only way to improve your fluency and accent. Here's the model version.
صباح الخير
صباح النور أي خدمة؟
عندكم مشمش اليوم؟
لا ما عندناش مشمش بس فيه تفاح وتين حلو
كيلو تفاح من فضلك
كيلو تفاح حاضر حاجة تاني؟
بكم البامية؟
كيلو البامية ب20 جنيه
نص كيلو بامية و2 كيلو جزر
اتفضلي الجزر والبامية
بكم الحساب؟
45 جنيه من فضلك
اتفضلي 50 جنيه
5 باقي مع السلامة
مع السلامة
Now, go back and repeat the prompted version and see how you do this. Conversation 7. Describing people. In a similar way to food words, the Arabic vocabulary for items of clothing tends to vary from region to region. There are the traditional items of Arab dress, such as the long flowing robe, known as one of the following.
جلباب
جلابية
There's also the man's shirt, which sounds similar to the French word chemise.
قميص
But more Western items of clothing tend to have been adopted along with a variety of imported words. For example, there's a traditional word for trousers.
سروال.
However, there is also another common word adopted from French and Italian.
بنطلون.
Likewise, a dress is usually,
فستان.
but a skirt has different words of various origin used to refer to it. For example,
جيبة، جونيلا.
تنورة.
you need to be aware of these regional differences and to adjust to local usage if. Now, let's listen in on a conversation in a clothes shop. This is deliberately a bit tough, and you may not catch all the information. But see if you can work out the gist of what is happening. Listen out especially for any words for clothes and colours. Remember, you can replay this track as often as you need to give yourself the best chance of working it all out.
عندكم حاجة مناسبة للفرح؟ يعني جلابية جميلة أو حاجة كده.
نعم يا مدام، عندنا ألوان كتيرة وكمان بالتطريز.
حلو التطريز. ممكن أشوف الجلابية اللي لونها أصفر من فضلك؟
الجلابية اللي جنب الشباك؟
أيوة، مقاس 44.
اتفضلي، مقاسك. حاجة تاني؟
أيوة، عاوزة قميص أبيض جديد لزوجي وفستان لبنتي.
عندها كم سنة بنتك؟
9.
يعجبك الفستان الوردي ده؟ كل البنات بيحبوا الوردي.
خلاص هاخد الوردي. كم حسابي؟
Did you catch some of the items of clothing and colours? The customer's asking about outfits for a wedding. She asked, "Do you have something suitable for a wedding?"
عندكم حاجة مناسبة لفرح؟
The first item the customer asks about is the long robe.
جلابية.
The shop assistant tells her, "We have lots of colours and also with embroidery."
عندنا ألوان كتيرة وكمان بالتطريز.
You already know the phrase meaning "we have,"
عندنا
lots of,
كتيرة
and also.
كمان.
So, if you saw the shop assistant pointing, you might be able to guess that he was talking about colours
ألوان.
and embroidery.
تطريز.
And what colour did she choose? Yellow.
أصفر.
See if you can pick out the word for robe and yellow.
ممكن أشوف الجلابية اللي لونها أصفر من فضلك؟
You may have fully understood the assistant's next question as you know all the vocabulary.
الجلابية اللي جنب الشباك.
The robe which is next to the window. Did you get that? The customer then gives her size. 44.
مقاس 44.
And asks for 2 more items. Did you catch either of them and who they're for?
عاوزة قميص أبيض جديد لزوجي
I want a new white shirt for my husband
وفستان لبنتي.
and a dress for my daughter. And how old was her daughter?
9.
9. They settle on the pink dress
الفستان الوردي.
because, as the assistant says, all girls like pink.
كل البنات بيحبوا الوردي.
Even if you got just a little of that conversation first time around, you did well and should understand it much better if you replay it now. And remember that on this recording, you don't have any of the visual clues to help you that you would have if you were actually. Conversation 8. At the beach. In Conversation 8 on CD2, you learnt the Arabic for winter and for December and January. But you may want to talk about other seasons or months of the year. Let's look at the seasons first. Winter.
الشتاء
spring,
الربيع
summer,
الصيف
autumn.
الخريف.
And now the months of the year. The traditional Islamic lunar calendar is known as the Hijra calendar, meaning flight, as it starts from the flight of the Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina in the 7th century. The most famous month of the Islamic calendar is Ramadan, the month of daytime fasting and nighttime celebration. The Islamic calendar is still used today, but mainly in a religious context. For everyday life, the Western calendar is more common. There are alternative names for the months of the year, but as a beginner, it's easier to use the ones that sound similar to English. Let's listen to them 3 at a time, starting with January to March.
يناير فبراير مارس
Now for April to June.
إبريل مايو يونيو
July to September.
يوليو أغسطس سبتمبر
And finally, October to December.
أكتوبر نوفمبر ديسمبر.
If you want to talk about a particular date, the simplest way is to add the numbers you've learnt before the month. April 9th,
9 إبريل
November 15th,
15 نوفمبر
July 22nd,
22 يوليو.
Okay, now listen to the 4 friends discussing when their birthdays are. Birthday in Arabic is...
عيد ميلاد.
There will be some expressions and words you haven't heard before, and also the friends are talking at a fairly fast pace. But make sure you're not distracted by that, and listen out specifically for the 4 dates and any seasons mentioned.
بقول لكم إيه يا جماعة؟ عيد ميلادي بكرة، هنعمل حاجة؟
عيد ميلادك بكرة سامي؟ 16 مارس؟ عيد ميلاد أمي كمان 16 مارس.
مارس حلو علشان الربيع أحسن موسم.
وعيد ميلادي برضو في الربيع 1 إبريل. وانت يا طارق؟
عيد ميلادي 20 ديسمبر بالشتاء، وعيد ميلاد فيروز بالخريف 7 أكتوبر، والطقس جميل بالخريف.
Did you manage to pick out some of the dates and seasons? Sami says his birthday is tomorrow, and he wants to know if they should do something.
عيد ميلادي بكرة، هنعمل حاجة؟
Feroz is surprised because tomorrow is March the 16th, also her mother's birthday.
16 مارس؟ عيد ميلاد أمي كمان.
Nadia also has a birthday in spring, on the 1st of April.
وعيد ميلادي برضو في الربيع 1 إبريل.
But Tarek's birthday is in winter, on December 20th.
عيد ميلادي 20 ديسمبر بالشتاء.
He goes on to say that Feroz has a birthday in autumn on October the 7th.
وعيد ميلاد فيروز بالخريف 7 أكتوبر،
And that the weather is beautiful in autumn.
والطقس جميل بالخريف.
Play this complete dialogue again and listen out for the information you've missed the first time. You should find that the information is becoming a little easier to pick out every time you practice listening to natural speed. Conversation 9. What's the matter? In Conversation 9 on CD2, you heard Tariq go into the pharmacy to ask about some medicine for Feroz. 2 very important words in this context are medicine
دواء
and pills.
حبوب.
But maybe Tariq doesn't know where the pharmacy is. In which case, he would have needed to ask, where's the nearest pharmacy?
وين أقرب صيدلية؟
Remember that Tariq is Iraqi, so for where he uses
وين أقرب صيدلية؟
but Sami, an Egyptian, would probably say
فين أقرب صيدلية.
You can also adapt this phrase to ask about other places. For example, where's the nearest supermarket?
وين أقرب سوبر ماركت؟
فين أقرب سوبر ماركت؟
Where's the nearest bank?
وين أقرب بنك؟
فين أقرب بنك؟
Now, listen to two short conversations. Where do the women want to go? And where are they directed? There's a bit of street noise and the conversations are quite fast, but try to listen out for the key information.
لو سمحتي يا أنسة، أنتي من هنا؟ عارفة فين أقرب بنك؟
أقرب بنك؟ نعم، هناك. أول شارع على اليمين جنب السوبر ماركت.
شكراً جزيلاً.
من فضلك، أريد أروح للصيدلية. وين أقرب صيدلية؟
بعيد. عندك سيارة؟ أكو صيدلية بوسط المدينة 15 دقيقة بالسيارة.
نعم، عندي سيارة. حأروح حالاً. شكراً.
You probably heard that the first woman wanted to go to the nearest bank. Did you work out where she was directed? The first street on the right,
أول شارع على اليمين
next to the supermarket.
جنب السوبر ماركت.
And the second woman wanted the nearest pharmacy.
أقرب صيدلية.
The man told her it was far
بعيد.
and asked if she had a car.
عندك سيارة؟
Then he told her there's a pharmacy in the centre of town.
أكو صيدلية بوسط المدينة
15 minutes by car.
15 دقيقة بالسيارة.
If you got the gist of both those conversations the first time around, you did extremely well. Now, listen once again and see how it all fits.
لو سمحتي يا أنسة، أنتي من هنا؟ عارفة فين أقرب بنك؟
أقرب بنك؟ نعم، هناك. أول شارع على اليمين جنب السوبر ماركت.
شكراً جزيلاً.
من فضلك، أريد أروح للصيدلية. وين أقرب صيدلية؟
بعيد. عندك سيارة؟ أكو صيدلية بوسط المدينة 15 دقيقة بالسيارة.
نعم، عندي سيارة. حأروح حالاً. شكراً.
To end the additional material for Conversation 9, you're going to go to the pharmacy yourself and take part in a conversation. To prepare for this, we'll quickly review some basic phrases. Do you remember how to say, I have a cold?
عندي برد.
Or, I have diarrhea?
عندي إسهال.
How about, do you have a headache? You're talking to a man.
عندك صداع؟
And, I don't have a headache.
ما عندي صداع.
And finally, how much is that?
بكام ده؟
Or,
كم هذا؟
okay, off we go. You have a bad cold and are in the pharmacy. You want to buy some medicines to ease the symptoms. I'll prompt you with what to say to the pharmacist. After the complete conversation, you'll find a model. Ready?
مساء الخير. أي خدمة؟
Reply to the greeting and say, I have a cold.
في أعراض تاني؟ يعني عندك حرارة؟
Say, no, I don't have a temperature, but I have diarrhea.
خدي الدواء ده حبة كل 6 ساعات.
Ask, how much is that?
ب40 جنيه.
Say, here you are. Thank you, doctor. Goodbye. Did you manage to explain your ailment? Listen to the following model and then have another go, but remember that you may have chosen a slightly different but equally valid phrase.
مساء الخير. أي خدمة؟
مساء النور، عندي برد.
في أعراض تاني؟ يعني عندك حرارة؟
لا، ما عندي حرارة، بس عندي إسهال.
خدي الدواء ده حبة كل 6 ساعات.
كم هذا؟
ب40 جنيه.
تفضل. شكرا يا دكتور. مع
Conversation 10. Taking your leave. Saying goodbye, like saying hello, gives you a chance to impress with a few well-chosen words. There are a number of phrases associated with partings. You've already learned the basic phrase for goodbye, which means with safety or go in safety.
مع السلامة.
A variation of this is with 1,000 safeties.
مع ألف سلامة.
You could also say in God's hands.
في أمان الله.
Or you could wish the traveller a happy journey.
رحلة سعيدة.
And don't forget, you could offer your address
هذا عنواني.
or your email address.
هذا عنواني بالإيميل.
Or say you'll see them soon.
أشوفكم قريبا إن شاء الله.
It's as well to add the formula God willing when you're talking about. Let's end with a final listening practice. Remember that when you're listening to Arabic, try to catch the gist by identifying words and phrases that sound familiar and make educated guesses about what comes in between. You're at the airport. You overhear 3 groups of people saying goodbye at the departure gate. The first time you listen, try to establish what the relationship might be between the various people taking their leave.
مع السلامة يا بنتي. خلي بالك من نفسك.
الله يسلمك يا بابا، ما تخافش عليا.
ما تنسيش الجوابات.
رحلة سعيدة مدام جعفر.
شكرا شيخ حسين.
في أمان الله.
مع ألف سلامة يا عادل.
ما تنسى تبعث إيميل.
عاوز أعرف كل أخبارك.
مع السلامة يا عادل. مع السلامة.
We first heard a father seeing off his daughter, then a more businesslike departure with Sheikh Hussein saying goodbye to Madam Jaffa, and finally a group of young people waving off their friend. You've expanded your understanding of the Arabic language and culture by using this CD along with the main conversations. You've also given yourself more listening practice and added some regional variations to your vocabulary. Now that you've come to the end of the course, why not play the whole of CD3 through on its own, as well as reviewing CD 1 and 2? You will find you understand much of the listening practice more easily now that your ear is properly attuned to the sounds of Arabic. If you've enjoyed the course, why not try Arabic in the Teach Yourself range? For full details of this and our other publications, visit the website www.teachyourself.co.uk. And now it just remains for us to say goodbye and good luck to you. Goodbye.
مع السلامة.
سلام.
في أمان الله.
الله وياكم.